G'day, guys. Hope you're all doing well. It's the coach here, your friendly neighborhood coach who's coaching the coach, who knows. Anyway, we are talking all things Slaves to Darkness. And what's brought us here is obviously Broken Realms has brought a new set of rules to the Slaves to Darkness pool. And I thought it would be awesome to pick up with a absolute madman who loves his Slaves to Darkness. Absolutely. It is Age of Nagash, Mikey. It's his debut on the channel as well as potentially debut on a live show and not as a host. So, Mikey, you've been doing YouTube for some time now, but welcome, g'day, and how are you, mate?
I'm very well, thank you, mate. I've had such a great day as well. I've actually been working on my Slaves of Darkness. I've been painting my knights up to use them in a Ruinbringer battalion, which we'll get to later in the show because I'm so excited for it. And yeah, man, thank you very much for having me on the channel. It's good to be here. You've been on my channel for a few times, so I thought it's the least I can do. And the last thing I just want to say before we get into it is that my new Chaos t-shirt has arrived, if you can kind of see it. So I'm all buzzed for the Slaves of Darkness to
mate, I've gone the extra mile and I've got a Chaos shirt up myself. So I've got an OG Storm of Chaos. The end times is upon us. So I thought I'd get into the spirit and talk things all Chaos and Slaves. And funnily enough, I've got a Slaves army. Mind you, it is a 5th edition with the OG halberds, and I've got, you know, the wizard on the double-headed dragon. I do have a little, I think Slaves to Darkness to me, there's a lot of nostalgia because one of the first games I got into was like Hero Quest and Warhammer Quest. And it was the Chaos Warrior that was introduced into that range that obviously kicked off the Space Marines, then it kicked off Stormcast Eternals. So everything has basically got a lineage to Chaos.
Hey, it's that classic Dark Knight appearance, isn't it? Like, if I was to think of like a good sort of stereotypical bad guy, especially from Warhammer Fantasy, it's got to be a Chaos Warrior. Like, and
that for me is like, it's just so cool. Like, just, you know, dark armored, you know, who's under the mask, this absolute tank. It definitely feels like a boss fight for me. So I'm really excited that Slaves got new rules, whether it was just a battle tome, let alone it's got an additional rules. And I'm really curious on learning more about this particular set of rules with Idolators. But before we get into the rules and we talk about that type of stuff, I'd like to know what got you into this, because you are Age of Nagash. So we can only assume that all things are Nagash and Nagash for all, and Nagash is the best, and you owe your soul to Nagash. But you've broken rank and you've gone to Chaos. So what drew you to Slaves to Darkness out of all other armies and all other builds of Chaos?
Well, like you've mentioned, I am a dedicated Death player, especially with Nagash. You know, I can't really talk about any other army with my love for them before I mention Nagash, so you've done that already for me. But like I said, for Slaves to Darkness myself, it's a little bit like you just mentioned with that nostalgia look, you know, that evil Chaos Warrior, that sort of thing. But was sort of my idea when I was a kid, before I could, you know, buy and build the army. So then when I get to the point where I can, why have I actually chosen this army, especially when my love is for Death completely wild, I break ranks? And that's really just because Slaves to Darkness offers me something completely different. I think that their lore is absolutely amazing. Whereas if we compare it to Death, for example, where you have these very charismatic leaders and then everything else is kind of just rules for the most part. Where we come to Slaves to Darkness, every single member in your army, it could be an army of 120 Marauders, it could just be the most elite of the elite chosen or Chaos Knights. Every single one of them is on a different start or a different step even to their path to glory, which is something that is also inflected into the game as well. So they really put that nice bit of lore in the game, which is the Eye of the Gods. Essentially, when you decide you want to dedicate yourself to the gods, you may be from a tribe that doesn't even realize that Khorne is this massive, you know, red bloodthirster looking demon, as we all know as players. They may just think that he is a mighty warrior who sort of like fuels the carnage in all of their hearts to push forward. Every single one of them, knowing who the gods are or not, they all sell their souls to try and gain power. And it could be trying to gain power for their tribe, trying to help them out, or it could just be for personal gain. But then you also have it's not all white and black. You have the gray element of, I think how the Blood Reavers do their stuff. And I know that's bloodbound, but it kind of works the same for
if you think about even just Warcry, like as you're talking, I'm thinking about Warcry.
Exactly.
And if people are familiar with Warcry, or they are playing Warcry, or maybe they haven't even gotten to 2+ Tough's lore videos, for example.
Oh, yeah.
When you're fighting in Warcry, these war bands, you're not fighting to be a Varangard. You're not fighting to be like 2IC of Archeon. You're fighting just to be a Chaos Warrior.
Yeah.
Just a little old Chaos Warrior. If you're lucky.
And that's what I love as well. So like when you look at the Chaos Warriors, just think like it's like a selection process for an extremely hard job of how many people actually, if you like, applied to try and get to that. It's not really a rank, if you will, but it's a sort of like a status of power, which I think is great. And what I was just going to quickly say about Blood Reavers, for example, is that when they conquer a new a kingdom or a tribe, what they often do is don't just slaughter everyone for someone. You can join our ranks if you eat the heart of your best mate or something like that. So it's kind of like you don't want to do it to be evil, but it's just for pure survival. And also people have dedicated their even kingdoms to some of the Chaos gods because they wanted to make their kingdom survive throughout the Age of Chaos. We weren't all in Azir and all living happily and safe. So it's not everyone who dedicated themselves to Chaos, is how I want to sort of finish this segment, did it purely out of evil. But eventually down the road, like if you, I don't know, you follow Slaanesh, what you take pleasure in may just be something very simple. Like you may love cooking, but then it gets to a bit so extreme that you like killing your victims and, or maybe even cooking them alive or something. It's just all these tedious little strings that take you down that path of glory, which is what's the main draw in their lore for me, and it's what I love to see when they transfer that into the game through the Eye of the Gods ability, which we may get to later.
There's a lot of cool lore, and I hope if you are on the fence of picking up Slaves to Darkness and that didn't excite you, what Mikey just shared, just a teaser, right? You could really drill down into the stories of Nurgle and plague and blight and people who are just fighting disease, and sometimes it's just easier to give in to Nurgle and you become a little plague bearer or a spawn.
Yeah, there's even a story of that where there's I think there's this marshland in the realm of life where the tribes there, just because they were just getting so sick of the disease and pestilence in this marsh, they eventually realized if they gave themselves over to, I think it was called Mother Mort, as what Nurgle portrayed itself as, she protected them not from getting sick, but from dying of being sick. So, and then they've dedicated themselves to Nurgle, but they're completely unaware. So and Slaves of Darkness really offer that opportunity of just seeing like how Chaos is as a whole, rather than just going, this is how the Bloodbound work and this is how the Disciples of Zeech work. It just gives you so much variety, and you can really see that in the playstyle of the army as well, which is really cool.
And as of recording, we are mere months away, probably weeks away from Mortal Slaanesh as well. So who knows how that's going to kick in as well, and how that might align. And I think if I kind of segue us a little bit from the lore into the rules and the models, the cool thing is, I'm a massive Cities of Sigmar player. People should know this by now. But it's really cool to see Slaves to Darkness is basically the equivalent of Cities of Sigmar, because you can draw from so much of the Chaos faction, and that's exciting because it does allow you to then start building a list, and you're not hamstrung to just Slaves to Darkness, but you can pull in all these other models from all other ranges, create some cool armies, some cool themes and concepts. You can evolve with the meta as it moves along. It's just an awesome, cool. And the models now, they've just brought out some really cool models. I really should get an affiliate link at this point, Games Workshop. I feel like selling a few additional models. But for me, Slaves is just cool. They're just badass cool.
They really, I mean, like in this video, like I said, we are going to deep dive or just mainly focus on the idolators. And there's so much you can unpack here. And if anyone's interested, I'll just say that I'm currently in the process of doing a massive review. I think I've done over 10 hours already, and there's another 4-hour videos, or 4 more videos to go, probably go towards 20 hours if you want to take the time. But I just want to unpack what you say, like a nice simple way of how I say them. You compare them to cities, is that they really are, they feel like that in Chaos. And almost I'd compare them a little bit to Stormcast in the sense of how many things can go with them, because it's almost pretty much they can play with everyone bar Skaven in all of chaos, which just shows huge variety. And it's not even like your Slaves of Darkness, you just ally them into Blades of Khorne or Desires of Siege. They just become the army. So my Slaves of Darkness army, I themed heavily on Slaanesh, but I can take it in 5 books, because you've got the 4 Chaos Gods, and then you've got the 1 Slaves of Darkness, and then obviously you've got Grand Alliance Chaos if you want to take that. So you've got plenty of options, just like as a broad aspect before we go into it.
Yeah, absolutely. So very, very cool nonetheless. I think you'll notice that in Chaos, you can have Plague Monks in a Nurgle army. You can do, where was I going to go with this? I was going somewhere else. Yeah, that's literally where I was going to go.
Yeah,
you can put Beasts of Chaos in different armies. So again, it's very versatile. It's, it's like an IKEA cabinet. Just plug it in somewhere and it'll work.
It's so good value. So good value.
It is very, very cool. But hey, let's not sell the sizzle and sell the sizzle.
Absolutely.
Let's actually just get into the rules and talk a little bit about how you. And I'm not worried about the rules, but what I want to start doing is putting some of the theory into practice. And then if someone is thinking about putting a Slaves to Darkness army on the table, they're hearing your logic and your reasons to what you're doing and how you're thinking about this. Because I think the Idolators for me, and this will be a much of an education session for me as it is probably for the audience, is that when I looked at Broken Realms, and I did a video with Warhammer Weekly when we talked through the rules and talked about the things, I was the least impressed with Slaves to Darkness. I thought Daughter's got some cool stuff. Eigneth's got some great stuff. Stormcast potentially have just gotten a little bit bonkers good. City's got some interesting things, probably not as good. But I kind of looked at the Idolators and went,
I watched that review live, I think, on that one, and I saw how it was at the end. What I will say about the Idolators is that there are ways to play them to make them worth considering running. It's not just as simple as a straight up what some of the reviews have said online. It's definitely worth something. And the cool thing about them, just to talk a little bit about their lore, is essentially they are the hordes that just run around the mortal realms, tearing down as many idols of other gods that are there to prove that the dark gods are the best. That's essentially where they get the name from. So it's quite
cool. Generally, how do you feel about Idolators compared to the other different Damned Legions? And you now are blessed with Damned Legions because you've also got the stuff from you've got them from
this. I was going to say this book came out about a year ago now, because I remember it just being before Christmas, I believe, and we already have 2 new sub-allegiances, so can't complain at all about that. There's 6 different ways you can take the 6 different sub-allegiances with that. And how would I compare them, or how would I compare Idolators to the other ones? If I'm completely honest with you, the other ones that I've run are Ravengers and Desolators. Off the top of my head, I think it's called. Despoilers. That's and I'm more than likely going to be running them if I want to take this to as competitively as I can. But for something a bit, to be honest, just a different way to play your models. This is making me bring out models onto the table that I wouldn't otherwise use, which is great because they're models I've got in my collection, and they're models that can be maximized in this sub-allegiance. I'm not going to completely lie to you, like I said, be honest and everything. It does sting a little bit. Like you read this, the Idolators, the sub-allegiance, and Games Workshop forgot to give us artifacts, which like a little bit that stings with that is, for example, if you take a battalion in this sub-allegiance, which I have done in one of my lists, which we'll get to, I can only take 1 artifact because I'm going to belong to a realm to get 1 artifact, but I can't belong to 2. So I can't take another one from another realm. But who knows? Maybe in a FAQ they could drop artifacts. I'm not saying that is going to happen, but like there's future things out there. And like I say, the main thing about the Idolators, it's just a different way to take models that you may not be using already. I think is a good positive.
And we saw people go crazy with chariots. And I think, when I look at any Slaves to Darkness army that I've played against in the past, I recently played in a tournament and it was based around Varangard and Iron Golems, which was just awesome. Big block of Iron Golems is just so tanky. I played a really cool army about 6 to 8 months ago, which was purely around the Lord on Kakadrak with Knights and Marauder Horsemen. That was literally it. It was just this massive cavalry army. Again, very cool. but I can't say that I've seen many chariots. And I think when I think about this, and by the way, people who tune into my show, some people are looking from a very competitive sense. They want to do the best that they can at their next tournament. Some people are just looking at building a list, playing fun, playing casually. So again, when we talk about this type of stuff, we are probably putting more of a match play lens. But you play your models that you want to play with. If you want to pick something that we don't think is very good, who are us to say run your army? But we're going to think about potentially the most competitive builds or the most more optimized build for the lists. And I'm going to get your thoughts as well on the battalion because, but spoiler alert, Mikey hasn't taken the Idolator battalion. So we'll get to that in a minute, and just you can tell me why or what your logic was behind there. But let's get into maybe the allegiance rules first. So I still get my Slaves to Darkness book. It's still relevant. I haven't lost anything with it.
This is just an add-on to it.
Cool. Yeah, it's a bolt-on. It's an addition to. It's some more tools. Is it all relevant to you? Can you still use all of this if you go Idolators?
It's all relevant to you, essentially, apart from the bit where it says pick which sub-allegiance you want because you're going Idolators. So you're going to get everything. You're not going to miss out on your allegiance abilities as itself. And as Slaves to Darkness don't have... I was going to say they don't have generic artifacts anyway, but it doesn't really matter. But yeah, so essentially, you'll still get everything. So you get your Aura of Chaos, you'll get your Eye of the Gods, and then you'll also get your spell laws as well. So you won't be missing out on anything on that one, as far as I'm aware.
With your generic rules, with these, when I say generic, I'm talking about the ones that are available to all Slaves to Darkness, and you've probably been using if you've already been playing this army in the past. When you look at the Idolators and you look at this particular rule set, does the way that you build your list, or is the way that you think about your army, does that change? Like, does Idolators promote maybe, the Aura of Nurgle better than, going down the Slanesh route? Or does it make you think about the Aura of Chaos different? Like, or is it kind of like, is it no change? Like, what's your thinking when you look at this and you think about Idolators?
There are some considerations. Like, for example, if I was to do it in no particular order, if we looked at the undivided mark, that essentially what that allows for is, what I will say, just in case people aren't aware with, the Aura of Chaos abilities, and we're looking at them first, essentially what you get is if your unit has the same mark as a hero, and it's wholly within 12 inches of that hero, they unlock one bonus. If that hero also is your general, you unlock bonus number 2. So as like a basic there.
It's like a mad pyramid scheme.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what, when you're building your Slaves of Darkness army, you can go, you know what, these couple units here are going to be this mark, and these ones are going to be this mark to try and versatilize your list. But one of the things I quite often do is make the whole list one mark, because then there's a lot more, it makes your life in the game a lot easier. You're not trying to measure too much speed in range. But for example, like I was saying, if we look at the mark of the undivided, from the Aura of Chaos, what that essentially allows is, I'm just going to make sure which way I've got this round. Yeah, so if you're wholly within 12 inches of your hero, who's also undivided, you are not going to be taking battle shot tests, which is good. That's still relevant in this. However, with it, your hero is the general. Essentially, you get a 6-up ward save, 6-up death save, damage prevention save, if you like. So when you look at my lists later, you're going to see that in Idolators, you want to include a lot of Chaos War Shrines. And Chaos War Shrines are giving you that bubble anyway. And it's a bigger bubble. And as the General's Handbook 2020 states, that you can't benefit from 2, I'm just going to call them ward saves. You've got to choose which one you want. So,
yeah, so in the old edition, in the old edition or before General's Handbook 2020, if you missed this, you could have multiple damage prevention, ward, call it what you will, invulnerable saves for anyone who's come over from 40k. So you take your regular armor save, you might then take, if you're a death player, you take Deathless, a 6+. If you're next to mystical terrain, or you're meant to next to something, you might get an additional save.
Copy and pasted over everywhere. Most armies come away.
And there were some times where you'd go like a 6+, a 6+, or a 5+, a 6+, a 6+, and it got a little bit crazy at times. But now Games Workshop has said only one damage prevention roll after your armor save. So so basically when you think about the stacking, you only can choose the best one. So something to consider, and maybe why, correct me if I'm wrong, maybe some people have turned a little bit away from the undivided route, and I'm noticing more Khorne and Zench type marking in builds. But we'll get to your list soon, but I've noticed a drop in the undivided armies.
The other reason with that is because depending on how you want to run your Slaves of Darkness, I mean, I'll just say now that a lot of people like to, I won't use the word spam, but like to take lots and lots and lots of Marauders and not really much else. In my army, and like I've basically explained in the lore, I like the armored look of the Chaos Knights and the Chaos Warriors. So a lot of those units have Chaos Rune Shields, which give them that 5-up mortal wound save, which means that they will not benefit from this 6-up mortal wound save. So it's just another example where it comes in there, or why people won't take it. What I will say is that, especially if your list is considering spending a lot of command points and things like making things party and attack twice, to give your knights a reroll charge and +1 to hit from a Chaos Lord on a mount, you might not have many command points left over just for a quick inspiring presence. So it may be useful for that sense. But because you're, in the most part, missing out on that second bit, which is the general bit, which I understand isn't going to be the most common part of the undivided mark, because that's the general. It just feels like a little bit of a sting for trying to go that way. So that's why I've haven't been running it, and I imagine that's why other people, like you've mentioned, Anthony, haven't been running it.
I think when I think about building a Slaves to Darkness army, I'm thinking at minimum a power pair. I'm thinking about what hero is supporting a troop and which combination of markings is going to make that unit even better. Then I'm thinking as well, holistically, my army, which marking of a Chaos God for my general would make as much of my army as good as possible, or what will give me more versatility or make my army just better. So I think, again, when we get into your list, which is very, very, very soon, I feel like this is some like marketing scam between all this stuff, but it is coming very, very soon. I just want to get Mikey's opinions on the battalion and then the idolater rules. So think about this, think about your markings. I think it can look a little bit complex, like, cool, it's taken me a long time to build my 2K list. But then how do I mark it? You know, do I go Slaanesh? How do I go Khorne? And then how does it all work? And, you know, what was better? And I think a little bit of play testing, a little bit of theory, but think through overall, what is my army trying to do? And what combination of units and rules and markings is going to help me achieve that objective better, more consistently, give me more flexibility with the meta, and handle, you know, some of the stronger armies, again, with a competitive mindset. Now, one thing that you got, and
exactly, I think what you mentioned there as well.
No, please continue.
So I was just going to say one thing just to mention there, like what you said. Depending on the meta, it just gives you loads of flexibility. Like, for example, you may be watching this video, and I don't know, a year from now, and it turns out everyone's running undivided for some reason. Like, so it's all changeable. And what I would say, the biggest tip is get used to measuring wholly within 12. Like that. I know it happens a lot in other armies, but this army, if you accidentally pile in a bit too far and your unit is no longer wholly within 12, and let's say they're going to get some attack bonus or a damage bonus, depending on what you've gone for, you're really going to feel that. So it's just a big thing you have to, it's worth missing out on a couple of attacks to make sure you get those bonuses.
And the context as well here, guys, is that we're recording this show before two key milestones. One, the FAQ. So the FAQ will drop pretty soon. And normally I would wait for an FAQ, but we've also got the winter potentially points adjustment as well. So I could have waited for the FAQ to drop, but if Games Workshop up the points or down the price of any particular unit, then I think the list construction may change. But I think for us, it's more about how we putting those rules into practice. So again, whenever you're listening to this, keep this in mind. Look at your own General's Handbook. Look at if points have adjusted or FAQs have impacted us.
Yeah, just check the date of the video, essentially.
It'll be fine. We're evergreen. One thing you did get with the idolators, and then we'll kind of this will kind of tie in nicely to the rules, is we got a battalion. We got a unique battalion, this Iron Reapers battalion, and it's all based around, I guess, you know, chariots. So chariots are cool. We don't really see them very often. We did see a little bit of chariot spam in Cities of Sigmar. Chariots have kind of started to come back because of their, they've got a big base. They're quite independent. Usually a lot of wounds. Usually a lot of high movement. So when you guys get a battalion, it's like, cool. Okay, well, this is potentially worthwhile. The iron. Was it the iron something? I've forgotten already.
Reapers? It was literally just above.
Yeah, I know.
How much I've put into looking at this.
I'm trying to think of 3 things in advance. The Iron Reapers. So talk to me, does your list include the Iron Reapers? And if it does, why? If not, why not? And by the way, what you got to take is you get an Eidolon Lord and 2 Gore Beast Chariots. All units from this battalion must have the Idolators and Undivided keywords, and the Idolator Lord from this battalion is a unique named character, and you get a bunch of stuff: the Soul Butcher, the Profane Ority. You get a cool stuff. But are you taking it? And if you are, why? If you're not, why not?
I'm not taking it. The short reason I can give you straight off is because you have to be undivided, and I think for things that we've already mentioned, undivided is not a great one. And also because a lot of my army relies on, for example, I'll just say like my list of Khorne, and it relies on the Khorne aura. As soon as I go undivided, even if I go Khorne with the rest of my stuff, I'm going to be missing out. So already, when I'm just reading the requirements, I'm not a big fan. But what I will say is I absolutely love chariots. I've built and painted one recently. I've got another one on the go at some point soon. So I wanted to make this work. But then when I read into the abilities, to be honest, the abilities, when you're reading them, some people may like them and may think they're pretty cool. But for me, as someone who wants a bit more reliability, I didn't see a massive benefit in it. So, for example, sorry, my computer, the writing's a bit small, so I'm just trying to read it. But
that's all right. I can read them out. So the two different rule sets you've got is the Soul Butcher, which the Chaos Great Blade used by the Idolator Lord from his battalion has an attack characteristic of 4 instead of 2, and the damage characteristic of D3 instead of 2. In addition, if the unmodified hit roll for the attack made by the weapon is a 6, that attack inflicts D3 mortal wounds to the target, and the attack sequence ends. And I know Jonathan in the chat at the moment called out something that I agree with, is that I don't like that the damage 2 became a D3. I don't like that we went from a consistent figure
reliability of the
to
2.
a swing. Yeah. I will always take damage 2 over D3, because while you got the potential of a 3, you got the potential of doing a 1. So I'd rather the flat 2.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what I said about the reliability. Don't get me wrong. I love the 2 extra attacks. I love the fact that you're, on the 6 is the hit, it's the D3 mortals. That's great. If they missed out the last, well, it's not the last, it's like the middle bit, isn't it? The D3 damage bit instead of the 2 damage. It's just annoying. I mean, I had a quick read of it again today to see if it had to be the Chaos Great Blade, because I was like, actually, you can give this guy the flail, and I think the flail has 6 or D6 attacks, so maybe 1 damage going to D3 could be quite... No, it has to be the Great Blade. So it's not helping the fact that I wasn't liking it from the start, because you've got to be undivided, and then the bonus of taking the battalion, or one of the bonuses, I'm not liking either. So it's not putting enough positives into my book for it so far. But I'll say the next command trait is good. I'll say that, which is nice about it.
And as you've mentioned, by going Idolators, there's no artifact. Correct me if I'm wrong. There's no artifact table here. Nope. So what that also then means, folks, is that you do get your command point. You do get your additional CP for taking a battalion. But because there is no artifacts table here, it does mean that we can only choose from the realm, which means you're going to at minimum have 2 if you took the battalion, 2 artifacts, but there's only 1 choice available to you. So it does make it a little bit hard. The other rule, by the way, the command trait is at the start of the combat phase, you can pick 1 friendly slave to the darkness unit wholly within 18 of this general. Add 1 to the hit rolls for attacks made by the unit you picked until the end of the phase.
So... yeah, you're absolutely right. We said about the battalion. So if anything, because you're not getting that artifact, this battalion just becomes more expensive for its points. And then the command trait, I say I do like that. The only problem I have with it is that if you want to make your army as combat offensive as you can, for example, I've gone Khorne, because even missing out on this +1 to hit, it's still going to be more offensive in the Khorne mark. So it's a little bit like I don't really know what this battalion is trying to do. And if I'm honest, it's not one of those situations I just can't run my chariot. Like, it's a shame. I want to run my chariots, but I can't. Go Runebringers. Runebringers is a better chariot battalion than this one. So you still got a battalion out there for your chariots. Unfortunately, like, if you could just scroll up for a second, Anthony, to the picture. If you go all the way to the top, when they did a quick preview of the photo, absolutely loved this battalion. Couldn't get enough of it. And then if you scroll down to the rules, I didn't like it as much, unfortunately. So I was quite excited for it. And especially how there's a box for it as well, which, again, you can use for Runebringers and everything else. If you purchase that box, there's still use for it. But they had an opportunity, and I feel like they missed it.
Oh, well, you're not a fan at the moment. Who knows? Who knows? Again, changes may come. White Dwarf Erratas might come. Games Workshop might do some things. We don't know what's happening right now. He Knights of Slaanesh might come in and change things up. But essentially, I mean, there is potential. I think there is some potential here. There is some negatives, but I think the potential as well is that the battalion only has to be undivided keywords. So your Idolator Lord doesn't have to be the general. So it can be a little contained unit. This 3 battalion, they're undivided, and everyone else is God marked somewhere else. It's just something to keep in mind when you're looking at this.
Sorry, I was just going to say, because it's the Idolator Lord, I believe he has to be your general in the Idolators. So if they're off on their own, the rest of your army is missing out on that general buff, which we'll read. If I'm wrong, we'll quickly read through it.
No, you probably know better than I do. Yeah. So just like for me,
I've tried to make this work. I really have, but like I say, times may change. It may become useful. Games Workshop, if they don't give artifacts if there is a winter FAQ, they may notice the fact that maybe this battalion can be a bit cheaper. Like, for example, Ostrich Bone Reaper battalions, because you don't get the command points useless to you. I've noticed they're a bit cheaper as well. So maybe they'll do something like that.
Cool. We'll move on because we're kind of harping on. Look, I think generally it's not as strong as it could be. If you run chariots already and you want to try something different, go do it. I think if I was looking at this and would this inspire me to go buy some chariots, probably not, unless I had a plan. I don't think it's quite strong enough for me to bring this into my list. I think there are just too many good tools available to you. But talking about Idolators, so then our Idolators gets a whole bunch of cool stuff. So when you choose the Damned Legion keyword for your Slaves to Darkness, so we're forfeiting the other Damned Legions. Basically, you choose the Idolator keyword instead of the one that's listed. So again, now everyone's going to get the Idolator keyword. And you do get a whole bunch of cool things. And Kyle in the chat saying only the priest can get the general trait for the Idolators, and you can only have one Idolator Lord, so it has to be the general. So it should be the general. So that makes complete sense. And I think this is the context when we start looking at things. You're like, right, now I can see why I would take it, or now I can see why I wouldn't take it. And being restricted to your general, that being that Lord being your general and not having the ability to mark Khorne, Tzeentch, Slaanesh, or Nurgle, that might benefit your army better. The trade-off for taking the battalion and going undivided isn't quite there.
Yeah.
Cool. So you get a couple of things. I'll read them out, Mikey. You give me your thoughts. You tell me what you're thinking here, and then we'll get into your list. Yep. So first up, you got the Blessed of Chaos. So you add 1 to the prayer rolls for your Idolator Priest. In addition, units in your army with the Priest keyword have the Leader Battlefield role.
To be honest, after the talking we've just given so far about the Idolators, I really like this. This is a great ability. This means that my Chaos War Shrines are now doing their prayers on a 2-up, and there's no way the enemy is going to stop those prayers. And as we'll go into in the list, some of those prayers are particularly good. And if you're going to take a Idolator Lord, i.e. the chariot, who will get to, essentially he becomes a priest, and he gets +1 to it as well. So you're only failing on 1s. Now, as long as you don't have luck like me, most of your prayers will be going off throughout the game with this. And so your prayers quite quickly with your Chaos War Shrines and stuff, some of them are kind of like your go-to spells in Slaves of Darkness. So now this is meaning you're not relying so much on your magic casters, your wizards, who don't inherently really get any pluses to cast. So, and a lot of their spells are like on a cast on a 7, so it's a bit risky. This is so much more reliable to get some of those buffs off. So I'm absolutely fan of this one. This is probably my favorite thing about this sub-legions, and I really don't think it can be underestimated just how solid that is.
You've got the Panoply of Ruin, which James Workshop will make my life easier with articulation. It's the Idolated Cultist units that have, Idolated Cultists unit have the battle line battlefield roll. In addition, when you make a charge roll for the Idolated Cultist unit, change the lowest dice to a 6. If you roll the doubles, if you roll a double, change one of them to a 6. So basically, your Warcry cultists, so everything that's available in Warcry, I mentioned Iron Golems, your Corvus Caval, all of those guys become battle line, and they basically become Marauders in a sense that, they, from a consistency of charge point of view, like unless you roll like a double 1 or like a double 2.
It's only if you get a double. I know. Okay, so they don't have the Hornblower. So with Marauders, because they got the Hornblower, for some reason they needed a +1 to charge as well. So they will fail on a 2 and a 3 on like a 9-inch charge. But that's fantastic. If you wanted to spend a command point, reroll it. Like it's there's nothing wrong with that as well. And what I want to say also, like, because they're they're battle line, that's cool. I mean, what I would say, Slaves of Darkness, a lot of the time when I end up building my list, I just somehow happen to have so many battle line units without intentionally doing it. But it's not just like, oh, that's the thing. When it comes to things like some of the battle plans out there, and I may forget a few of them, so I'll forget.
I was literally going to go to the same place. I think,
and I'm just going to go there with the quickly say before I forget about it. With the priests becoming leaders, there's some of those battle plans as well that help with leaders. So there's some tech in there which you could use.
I think for me, like you're right, like we compared them to Cities of Sigmar in the past, where it's like, my city's army, I have no concern about getting my battle line requirements. Like literally 3/4 of my army is battle line, which is one, great from just a list tech point of view. 2, now that some of our scenarios are rewarding us for getting additional VP for being secured or being burnt or whatever it might be from a battle line unit, straight up, having your cultists get the battle line keyword, either A, means you can put more points into non-battle line units, and if you want to run, some big beasts or some big elite units, go do it. Or it means you've got more objective scoring potential and more ability to get bonus VPs by more of your army being battle line. So I think that's really cool. I've been so impressed by Iron Golems. I played a couple of small units, like people running just units of 9, I think it is. They come in 9s.
8.
But I played. I think, I swear it was 8. It was either 18 or higher than that, and it was just crazy cool. But
yeah, they are good. And just like, I know a lot of people. I know you mentioned the Iron Golems, but quite a few people write off some of the other ones. What I would say is, I think one of my videos, I reviewed them for about an hour, like all the different war cries, and they do have some use. Like for example, you go unmade. The ones who they're not dedicated to Slaanesh, but they skin their faces for their. Agony is their gift, something like that. They're very Slaaneshy. If you go with them, if they're in combat with an enemy unit, that enemy unit can't retreat. So if you can try and tag an enemy unit there, and if you go like, well, I'm going to want to have them on the flank so they don't get hit because they've got a 6-up save. So how am I going to guarantee charge? They've got the bonus to charge now. So if you've got some points left over, and these things are, I'm pretty sure the Warcry ones at the moment are like 70 points. So yeah, you can do some good things with them. It's worth having a look.
The Untamed Beast as well with is it the pre-game 6-inch move?
Yep. That is, you can use it as well to, depending on like, this is very specific, but I know like, for example, with the Stormcast Liberators running around at the moment, you can use it as a way to try and vent off against what I would say is a very competitive list. So, exactly, there are things you can use, which is good.
Cool. The next rule you got is the Idolator Lord. So you can upgrade one of the Chaos Chariots or Gore Beast Chariots in the unit with one model in the army. If you do so, it gains the Idolator Lord, Hero, and Priest keyword. It's an Exalted Charioteer, even though it has one model, and you must give it the mark of either Khorne, Tzeentch, Nurgle, Slaanesh, or Undivided. An Eidolon Lord knows the prayers from the Idolator prayers table. So there's a whole bunch of, what's that, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 prayers.
6.
Six.
Is it 6? I think
No,
it's
5.
4.
It's
No, it
5.
might be
It's
5.
5.
Yeah, only
It's
5
your 4
markers,
chaos
yeah.
spells plus an undivided. So you
Yeah.
get 4 prayers on the following page. So I guess we're not running chariots here, so it's a bit of a redundant ability, or is it just or is it just we don't take the battalion, but we still do take a chariot?
So my thinking with this is I'm not taking the battalion like I've already mentioned, but I am taking at least one chariot to become my idolator lord, and in my list one of them is a gore beast, and then the other one of them is a chaos chariot. So one's with horses and one's with the big gorilla looking thing. So we've got both.
Spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert. But I'll sort of save it most of the talking for them. But just to quickly say, one of the things I like about it is because if you don't go with this, you're missing out on the like another way to do some prayers, for example. So you feel like you're missing out a little bit, and he can do some we'll get to in a moment, some useful couple of prayers. But the reason I like having him as my general is because for not a lot of points you're getting the base size of a manticore for the Aura of Chaos ability. So I'm using him really as a cheap way to get that to extend my aura. And the other thing as well is that, it's nice that he becomes the Exalted. Just to quickly explain what that means is basically if you have a unit of more than one Chaos Chariots normally, it used to be just one, but if you have more than one in a unit, one of them is Exalted and he gets to add one to his, I think it's the Great Blade or whatever, if you give him the Flail, which you're not going to do. So his Great Blade gets +1 to hit, which is very useful, especially how we'll talk later in my list of how that comes in useful, but it's another bonus, isn't it? And again, he's a leader, so that's another what do you call it for when it comes to things like Total Conquest, Scorched Earth, things like that. I'm trying to remember the battle plans that you get.
Mate, in a couple of months' time, this might change as well. We got General's Handbook 21 coming.
Yeah.
But any way that you score additional VPs, any additional ways that leaders may contest or challenge, or there's something might come up with the leader, you've gained an additional cheap way to buff your units, as well as you've gained some additional ways to get some VPs. So a cheeky little addition, but as we kind of mentioned, probably not worth going into the battalion. There's just too many trade-offs that just probably aren't worth it. The last
still have one called chariot in your list.
Yeah. Take one chariot. Maybe don't go the battalion. Is what I'm kind of hearing.
Yeah.
The last thing you're going to get is you actually kind of get two things. You've got the destroy the false idol. So you add 1 to the wound rolls for attacks made by the idolator models that target a priest. Not bad. Not a lot of priests out there. You might handle the Daughters of Cain meta that's quickly coming up.
Yeah. What I will say is that, so I did a very quick, before this video, look on Games Workshop to see how many priests there are. Now, this doesn't mean this is how many War Scrolls, because there may be separate models. But in all of Age of Sigmar, there are 15 priests. Bear in mind, some of them come from Slaves of Darkness itself. So, but Nagash is a priest. So if you're going against a Nagash, it could be you. Don't forget, is what I'm going to say. In your other 9 games, you'll forget because it won't be useful. In this one, or like you said, Daughters of Cain. I mean, I'm lucky enough to have never fought Daughters of Cain, nor do I intend to. But if I do, my idolators will be ready.
Yeah, good luck getting through the witch elves to get to those priests. But a nice little cheeky thing. There's probably a couple of priests out there, maybe heroes, like you said, Nagash, that might be valuable. But what the other thing you get with that is, in addition, you've got Desecrate. So you can use his command ability in your hero phase. If you do so, pick one friendly idolator unit that's wholly within 12 of a friendly idolator lord, and within 3 inches of a terrain feature that is a part of the enemy's army. So we're talking here about basically the allegiance terrain. Then roll a dice. If the roll is greater than the number of enemy models within 3 inches of that terrain feature is desecrated. Senior rules for desecrated terrain do not apply for the rest of the battle. So what I'm hearing is that you're going to delete a faction-based terrain. Sorry, my dog just decided to get under the table and
that's okay. He's welcome.
He's fine as long as he doesn't come under the microphone and snore like he likes to do.
We'll find out.
So the interesting thing for me, Mikey, and maybe you disagree or you agree with me, is that so we're talking here about terrain that's a part of the enemy's army. So we're talking Bonetide Nexus, we're talking Gloomtide Shipwreck, we're talking, all that type of stuff. Seraphon Temple. First off, Silver Wildwoods. Some of them are going to be easier to get to than others. So things like the Loon Shrine, good luck getting to a Loon Shrine unless you've got a mad teleport. But is it even worth doing it anyway? But things like the Bonetide Nexus, I've really enjoyed destroying with my Gargants lately. So it probably very similar to the Priest rule, right? It's going to come up occasionally. You just got to remember it.
I remember, to be fair, like we did a video the other day where we talked about when your Giants could do this as well. And it is useful. And I say, like, the Bonetide Nexus, I almost think it's a little bit, when you compare it to some other terrain, it's just like, it's just good no matter what. So it's nice to be able to turn it off. Am I going to spend a command point on it? It really depends on just how much it's going to annoy my opponent. So probably yes. Well, we'll see. Like I said, some terrain features going to be harder. You also have to. Did it say that you have to have more models next to it than the enemy does?
Yes, you roll a dice. If you roll a dice, and it has to be greater than the number of enemy models. So there's a good likelihood that within 3 inches. So there's a good chance that your Sylvaneth Wildwoods are probably going to have Dryads or Spite Revs or something. So rolling a dice above that number might be hard unless they've moved away from the Wildwoods.
What I'd say is that depending on how you want to build your list, I mean, you're probably going to benefit from the cultists getting better. If you're like me, you're going to put a chariot in there, so you're going to also benefit from that, and you're going to benefit from +1 to prayers. So these other two things, the +1 to wound against priests and this, like you compare them quite similarly. Well, I'd say they're just tools. They're just tools you can use. They may be useful in your game. But the priest thing, just ask your opponent if they've got any priests. They'll probably have to maybe think, do I have a priest? But they're just tools. It's an extra ability. It's better having that than, a blank, and it may be useful. So.
Yeah. Look, there's some good stuff in there, but it's probably not going to apply. Basically, where I'm going with this is that it's not going to apply in every game. Just be mindful. So if you do have a priest, maybe something you want to ask in when you set up, and or think about those faction terrain. I probably wouldn't be thinking about this. I think I'd rather just kick my opponent in the crotch then. But hey, I've enjoyed destroying 2 Bonetide Nexuses already. I can't wait to destroy a Gloomtide Shipwreck. It's just so much fun shutting down that Bonetide Nexus.
Yeah.
Cool. Anything else you want to add to the Idolators? You do get 6 different priest command traits available to you, and we'll talk a little bit about those within your list. And we did mention that there are prayers as well, so we'll talk about that in context. So that's what you get for being Idolators, as well as we mentioned, the battalion. So, Mikey, you've given me 2 Idolator lists. We're going to go through it, and I'd love to know why you've chosen and how this is all going to work. So for the friends joining us later on the podcast, the first list is Idolator list number 1, very creative listing. You are coming from the land of Gur, and you are the Damned Legion of Idolators. What you've got in your list is the Idolator Lord on the Gore Beast Chariot, which is the general. You've got the command trait of fiery Orator, and the artifact of the Predator Talk with the Mark of Chaos and the Blessing of Khorne prayer. You've also got Velacor, which is the Mask of Darkness. You've got the Chaos Lord on Kakadrak, which is also marked as Khorne. We have 40 Chaos Marauders with Axe and Shield, marked Khorne, 5 Chaos Knights with Cursed Lance, marked Khorne, 5 Chaos Knights, Cursed Lance, marked Khorne, rinse and repeat, 5 Chaos Knights, Cursed Lance, marked Khorne. I
told you I like my Chaos Knights.
And we'll find out very soon why you've chosen Knights. I really like Knights, but then why you've also gone Khorne for that extra buffs. And then finally, you've also got the one that slaves to Darkness Chaos Spawn. I just recently played some Chaos Spawns in Beasts of Chaos, and my God, they are an awesome investment for 50 points.
Oh, they're so good. Yeah.
You've also got double War Shrine. So you've got Chaos War Shrine marked Khorne, Chaos War Shrine marked Khorne with the Rune Bringer Warband with an extra CP. So that comes in at 2k on the nose. Lots to go through. Talk me through a little bit about your hero choices. What's Bellicor, Idolator Lord on Gore Beast, and Kakadrak bring into the table? Why Khorne? Why the artifacts?
So the idea I had behind this is I also wanted to try, because I thought, this is very sort of, it wants you to take chariots, this sub-allegiance. So I thought, why not try and maximize it? We'll take the Runebringer Battalion. So that also brings in quite a few of my unit choices. But the reason why we've gone for the Idolator Lord on Gorby's Chariot as an example is because he becomes the general, obviously, but why have we gone for the Gorby instead of the horses? And that's really because in the Ruinbringer Battalion, which I know I'm jumping to that already, but essentially what that means is if a member from that battalion, i.e. the 3 knights, the chariot, and then the Chaos Lord and Cartrack, if they make a charge, they pick an enemy unit. I think it's 1 inch or 3 inch off the top of my head. I've just, annoyingly, that's just gone off my head.
You keep continuing. I'll go find it.
Cool, fantastic. You roll a dice. And you pick an enemy, you roll dice, and on a 2-up, you do D3 mortal wounds. The Gorby's Chariot has that in his war scroll as well. So on the charge, you're rolling 2 dice, and on a 2-up for each of those dice, you're doing D3 mortal wounds, which is quite a nice impact from your chariot. And that's
the Runebringer, but is it the Warband?
Warband, yeah, I think it's Warband.
Yeah. So it is each time for a unit from this battalion finishes a charge move, you can pick 1 enemy unit within 1 inch of that unit.
That's fine.
Yeah, if you do so, roll a dice.
You have to finish within half an inch of an enemy unit anyway, so that's not a problem at all. So yeah, that's why I've liked that. And then that sort of comes down to if we go to the artifact, the predatory talk from Gur, the Realm of Beast, that allows you to reroll your charge. So if you miss that charge, you're not going to spend a command point to do it. You've got the roll there. It's why I like that. And then, so we've got him. He's going to be running alongside 2 of your units of knights. And he has got the Fiery Ordinator, however you pronounce it. And what that means is he can do 2 prayers. So he can only do the Khorne prayer, because unlike the Chaos War Shrines that can do any prayer, doesn't matter what you dedicate it to, in the Idolators, the Idolator Lord, who gets access to the prayers, can only do the prayer to he is marked with, which means that he can do it, which is not bad. It allows you to pick one of the units, hold even 12 of him, and they get to reroll failed hit rolls. And it can also, of course, go on him, which is useful. And so that's really him. The other reason, like I said, I liked having him is because of that base size. So he's giving your... to be honest, I was saving it, so I can talk about it now. In Khorne, you get your reroll hit rolls of 1 in melee if you're wholly within 12 inches of a Khorne marked hero and your unit's Khorne. But if it's wholly within 12 inches of the general, you're also getting +1 to wound as well, which is very nice. So if we talk about the Idolator Lord, for example, just the Great Blade, because he's getting +1 to hit from being the Exalted Charioteer, that means that he's got, I think it's 2 attacks of it, 2's the hit, rerolling 1s, and then 2's the win, which is -1, 2 damage. It means from something that when you first look at, I'm not gonna lie, when you first look at these chariots and you think about them, you go, I'm not really going to take on my list. I don't really know how I'm going to make them work. But when you start building into them a little bit, like I've done here, you can show how they can be worth it. So yeah, that's him. You're running him up.
I will say that when I look at the command traits, there are a couple that really stand out for me. Mm-hmm. The other one is probably the bolstered by hate. So if you don't like the fiery ordinator or orator, you can add 2 to the wounds characteristic of this general. So if you want to make that a little bit more survivable to kind of increase, I guess, the time on the table for your auras, that might be an alternative consideration. And again, you guys can season for taste, do what you want to do. But there are a couple of good choices, in my opinion. I probably wouldn't say all 6 of those.
No, there's the other one that gives you +2 attacks, I think. There's one of those.
Yeah, the Smite of the Unbeliever gets +2 attack for the melee weapon. Things like Lord of Terror at the moment, where you subtract 1 from the bravery characteristic. At the moment, there's just too much bravery 10, as well as Inspiring Presence has too much of a... it's too good at the moment for the current game. So I think when I look at subtracting 1 from bravery, I'm not a huge fan in the current game. But
the reason I look for the Gorby's Chariot is as long as things line up well, I'm going to be charging him with my knights. And although when you go to Gorby's, he's got some nice damage, particularly if you get an 8 to charge or 8 or more. I think it's +1 to hit and wound for the Gorbeast. So he can do some damage. But I'm more than likely, I'm always going to be attacking with my knights first. So I want to have the reroll hit rolls on both my knight units. And again, some of these things are repeated. Like you can do that with a Chaos War Shrine, but basically what you're doing is you're rolling 4 prayer rolls here, and you're only failing on ones on obviously a 1d6. So it's just increasing your reliability. So that's why I like that. Going on to Be'lakor, he's almost I'm sure you know, Anthony, he's almost a auto include in a lot of Slaves of Darkness lists, just because he has one very funny ability which I can't remember the name of off the top of my head, but I most certainly know what it does. And
you're talking about Dark Master?
Yeah, to nullify it. Do you want to? Have you got up there?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
so
you've got to read it, and then I'll.
So you're talking about Dark Master. So after this setup is complete, but before the first battle round begins, secretly pick one enemy unit on the battlefield. Once per battle, at the start of the enemy hero phase, you can reveal which unit you picked. Until your next hero phase, your opponent must roll a dice each time the unit attempts to cast a spell, move, charge, or attack with a weapon it's armed with. On a 1 to a 4, it can't do it. On a 5+, it can. So 1 in every 3 times, according to MathHammer, 1 in every 3, you're going to stop somebody from casting a spell, moving, charging, or attacking.
Yeah, so there's a third of a chance they'll be able to do what they want to do, essentially. And why I like that is because most armies you fight, and I'm aware that some of the top meta lists may not be the case, but most armies you fight tend to have one big centerpiece nasty model. Could be Teclis, could be Archaon, could be Nagash, whatever you want to call it. Could be Morathi. And that's obviously a good choice. Or they could have a few big blocks. Let's just say a big box of Witch Elves, for example. Might not be able to do anything. It's also, for example, in a game that I went against Lumineth Realm Lords with Teclis, and I just stopped Teclis casting these spells for a turn.
I've seen that happen a few times very effectively against Lord Croak, because Seraphon players build their army around Lord Croak. You know, they spend so many points to get the Bound Bale, so get the Balewind Vortex. They're going to put in Astrolith Bearer, going to have Saurus Guard. They're going to have all this stuff, probably over 1,000 points into the Croak-Nado. And you literally just 1 in every 5. You could go, nope, can't do that. Nope, can't do that. Yep. And I've seen it infuriate bunch of Seraphon players alone, let alone all the other different armies, whether it's, you got a buffed up Terrorgeist in Grizzlegore, whether you've got Nagash, whether you've got Archaon, whether you've got Morathi.
So my experience with Be'lakor at first was being the opponent against him, and my local game mate called Jamie, he used it against Nagash, and Nagash rolled to be able to do stuff 11 times in that turn. And I think he succeeded on, no, he only succeeded on 1, which was to move 2 inches to then try and charge, and failed. So like it's huge, and he's only costing you 240 points. So like it's great, and it essentially punishes the enemy for investing so much into one thing, which is why I like it. He's also, if you take that aside, like that's the main reason he comes along, and even to beat the Chaos list, that's why he's in there. If you take that aside, he's a 2-cast wizard, which is great because you don't have many 2-cast wizards in Slaves of Darkness, which again, if I get this wrong, someone let me know in the comments, but you've got him, a Gaunt Summoner, and Archaon that can cast 2 spells. So, yeah,
just someone in the chat, David Allen, will give him a shout out here because he brought up an interesting point as well, is that, and I'm just rereading the War Scroll just to clarify David's comment. But David's talking about the fact that you can still activate Be'lakor's ability if he's dead, because it doesn't seem to tie into Be'lakor. You set up the rule, so you go Lord Croak, boom, Dark Master, 5+, you can't do anything. Sorry, 1 to 4, you can't do anything. But it doesn't say that the rules are shrugged if Be'lakor's not on the table. So that's really scary, because most people have, like in most average lists, Mikey, you have 3 main threats, maybe 4, but you normally have 3 centers of power in most competitive lists. And being able to shut down, an army that has a Hurricanum that is centerpiece to the army, that if the Hurricanum's not there, you're not giving the pluses, you can't activate this, you can't do this. Morathi is going to teleport, do this. If you can just go 5 up, you can't do what you want to do. That can throw off a lot of people's games. So for a small amount of allocation of points,
Yes.
Be'lakor is such, and because it's not tied to the war scroll, it's not like, cool, I kill Be'lakor turn 1, I'm going to throw all of my spells into Be'lakor, and if he's dead, the rule's gone. No. So I think it's a great choice.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. Where what's his name again? Sorry.
Pardon?
I was just going to say, whoever shouted that on the chat, so it's a really good.
David Allen.
Yeah, Dave made a good point there, because it's great. And I mean, like, the part of me that's a bit of a cheeky git is that when my opponent goes like, so if I kill Be'lakor, does that make his ability go away? And I go, no. It's great.
And David and Jonathan are both telling me in the chat as well that it's been FAQ'd too. So
yeah, it's absolutely confirmed. Like, yeah. I think when you read it off the war scroll, it confirms it, but then I think some people maybe got annoyed, so they wanted it to be FAQ. It's fine. The other good thing about Be'lakor is that when you activated it, let's say you took the priority, then your opponent's taken the second turn of the battle round, and you've activated at the start of the hero phase. Remember, you have to activate at the start of the hero phase. If they cast a spell and then you go, oh, I want to, it's a bit too late. So you activate it, and then your opponent wins priority for the next battle round, and they go, yes, I'm going to take it. You go, cool. Be'lakor's ability is inactive until my next hero phase. So that's 2 turns of Techless, for example, not doing anything.
Like, awesome. Cool. Be'lakor, great choice.
Yeah, cool. Yeah,
yeah. 200, no. Like, it's a great pick. If you want to know more about Be'lakor, I think it's just a great choice. I think regardless, it's a great utility piece. If nothing more, it's a debuff.
I've probably
been able to.
So I was going to say, on my like hero video, I probably talked about him for about 15-20 minutes. So if you want to check that out, like there's more tech about him there. But I'd summarize, he's the easiest auto include in the army, more than the Chaos Sorcerer Lord, I'd say.
The other one you've got is the Chaos Lord on Kakadrak, something that you see a lot ever since this model got released. I feel like 12 months ago, maybe a little bit longer ago. It's a wonderful model. I love the sculpt. More importantly, it has really good rules and it supports your army really well. So why Chaos Lord on Kakadrak? Why isn't the general? And why? Because you do often see the Kakadrak as the general. And then why have you decided to mark it Khorne and then subsequently mark everyone else Khorne?
So the Chaos Lord on Kakadrak, first off, like I said, he's awesome. I love how I painted him up. I want to run him. So put that to the side. Why am I taking my list? So firstly, the reason why he's not the general is just because in the Idolators, you're just missing out, for me, a bit too much if you're not taking a chariot as the general. So the reason why I've taken him, and a big question you ask when you take a Chaos Lord and Kakadrak into your army, is why am I not taking a Chaos Lord on Demonic Mount for, I think, 170 points, so it's 60 points cheaper. That's almost, for example, we mentioned a Chaos Spawn, that's also nearly a Warcry warband, you know, that's a big points difference. It's one of the ender spells. So why are we taking him? He has a 3-up save, which is really amazing for something like that. He's got a nice amount of wounds. He's got 9 wounds on him. Also in the Runebringer Battalion, he's like the Chaos Gorby's Chariot, where when he makes a charge, roll a dice for a unit with him. I'm going to say 1 inch for him. On a 2-up, it's D3 mortal wounds. With the Runebringer's Warband, you roll in 2 dice for that. So it's a nice thing for him there. He's also, because in this list we don't have many heroes. Yes, we have, I believe, 5 leaders. We don't have many heroes, so I wanted him to be a bit more survivable than a Chaos Lord and Demonic Mount. And I'll be honest, when I looked at his war score at first, I was like, oh, I just wish he was like his big axe. Wish I had Rendor. He was just a little bit more. I'll tell you what, I've been running him in on TTS, and man, has he done so much pain. I'm like so happy how well he has performed. He got charged by 10 Drakespawn Knights, which is, you know, this is a Sigmar. They're the Dark Elf Riders, right? Got charged by 10 of them, right? They attacked him first, and then he killed 8 of them that turn. Like, absolutely mental. There's ways in this army with the War Shrines, if you wanted to give this guy a reroll failed saves, so a 3-up reroll him. He's got a 5-up mortal wound save as well. And his command ability works very well with the Chaos Knights, and to be honest, the Chariot, if you wanted to, which is you pick one of the a Chaos Knight unit or a Gorby's Chariot unit, and they get to reroll their charge, and they add 1 to hit rolls if they charge that turn. Which again, with because like the Runebringer Battalion, which, you know, I'm missing out on artifacts, yes, but it's giving me that extra command point. So on my turn 1, because I paid for an extra one, I've got 3 command points to chuck away, to spend on to spam some of these abilities as much as I can. So that's why I like the Chaos Lord and Karkadrak. The reason I've gone Khorne is something that I've mentioned earlier, which, like I say I like to make my whole army Khorne. Not all of it, because Be'lakor has to be undivided. Something I should mention. He's also a named character, so he can't take an artifact. Command trait. Something I should also say for him is that he is. I don't know if it's called ethereal, but he's practically ethereal, so it doesn't take rend. So that's another cool thing about him. But yeah, that's why I love the Chaos Lord on Karkadrak. Simply a model.
The other cool thing I'll call out is you talked about his durability, the 3+ armor save, the 5+ mortal wound shrug. In addition, something that you can forget about, and it might come into the order, the attack sequence that you might put into, is if you slay a model with the Hexed Battle Axe, it can heal up to D3 wounds. So it might mean if you're fighting a multi-wound hero or a unit, we know with multiple wounds, you might want to put some of the other attacks in before the Hexed Battle Axe. Because it does hit on 3s, wound on 3s, no rend though. But being able to get an additional D3 wounds back at the end of the combat phase just adds to that durability that we've been talking about.
Yeah, and so I just want to add that, like you say, hitting wounds and freeze, right?
The Hexed Battle Axe is 5 attacks, 3s, no rend for damage 2.
So like it's missing rend, but the thing what I love about Slaves of Darkness, and I sort of wanted to wait until we look at the list to talk about it properly, is when you read War Scrolls in your Slaves of Darkness, that's not as good as your Slaves of Darkness actually are. They're a lot better. Like that Chaos on Karkadrak, when I make sure he's in range of that Chaos Gorby's chariot, he's 5 attacks, for example, for that axe, hit on 3s, reroll on 1s, win on 2s. Straight away,
shout out my mate Dave in the chat again, who's talked about marking his Slaanesh Kakadrak Lord with the incandescent Rage Blade, and then the Flames of Spite to give any 6 to hit is 3 hits. So again, season to taste, guys. If you want to mark your whatever Nurgle or Zench or Slaanesh, obviously we're just putting this into theory, but you build the list how you want to build it. But there's just another example of just cool ways you can just build a list.
You can give it if you stick to the realm artifacts as well, like that's a great one, Dave said. But if you want to give him the one from Shaiish, for example, which is reroll save rolls a 1, that's just a flat up 3-up save reroll on 1s, just like as an inherent thing. With the enemy doesn't have much mortal wound or rend potential, they're probably just not going to bother with him. And yeah, I personally think it's great. And like you said, the order of your attacks, there has been times where I've missed out some attacks just because you have to try and stack it well, because we said he's very durable. There are things in this game that can chuck 6 more mortal wounds at him in a turn if they want to try and kill him off. So you need to remember this stuff. There's actually been some interesting times where he can turn into a Demon Prince during the game, and I've decided to keep the Chaos Lord on Karkadrak because I think he's better in some cases. So it's an awesome model, and finally a great model with great rules, because that's not always the case, unfortunately.
I know you've made Doug 2+ Tough in the chat very proud when he said nothing makes him more happy than a competitive list build talking about the model. So we're very lucky to have some very cool models.
Yes.
Maybe not in that camp is the 40 Chaos Marauders. So I think we know what Chaos Marauders do. They do need a little bit of an update in their sculpt. Sorry, not Scoric. Chaos Marauders. Anything that you want to add from like a marking of Khorne and why you've got them in this list, other than obviously the guaranteed charges, just the sheer amount of damage it can do. So there's a lot of cheap points.
Just in case, I know like we all talk about like, oh, Marauder, we all know what they do. Just in case there's anyone watching out there, why have I gone with axe and shields, for example? Essentially, when I'm in the combat phase, I believe the shield gives you +1 to save, so you're not a 6-up save anymore, you're a 5-up, and then the axes have 2 attacks, which is very nice. And then 40 Marauders, yes, their sculpts need to be updated, but to be honest, I'm tempted just to convert them. And the reason why they're in this list is quite simply because this list has, now that we're moving on to the more units, they are wave 1. So this list has 2 waves to it. And you could play against an opponent which buggers up your strategy, but let's just say your strategy can play out how I'm going to describe, essentially. You teleport your Marauders via Be'lakor into the enemy turn 1, i.e. by making Be'lakor outside of any unbind range. but still wholly within 12 inches of the Marauders, so sort of like in the middle of them. And then he teleports them, let's just say, in front of the enemy lines, just outside 9 inches away. Your Marauders are only failing that charge on a double 1, and then they're into the enemy. What you're also going to do when you're doing that is you're going to, well, actually, before you teleport them, I should say, you're going to put the Zeech Prayer on them from the Chaos War Shrine, which gives them reroll saves, so now they've got a 5-up save rerolling. And then you're going to put the Chaos Undivided Prayer on them, which is arguably the best one, to make them reroll hit rolls and wound rolls. And I know you're shaking your head, and I can't tell you, I know I'm going to be talking positive here, but I can't tell you how much it annoys me that the Chaos Marauders are one of the maybe the strongest unit in the book, because I, number one, don't like the models, don't mind saying that. And they're the weakest. They are just above Warcry. Why the Chaos War? Anyway.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Chaos Warriors should be the buffed guys. But just again, Chaos Marauders.
Point. Sorry.
What makes them cool? Just, we talked about, changing the lowest dice to the highest dice, so we're making it 6.
Yeah.
So it basically means that you're guaranteeing the charge because is it the icon bearer or the musician gives you
the musician, I think, yeah.
The drummer.
Yeah, +1, isn't it?
+1 to the run and charge roll. So if you're making your lowest dice is a 6, 1 to the charge roll, so it's a 7. As long as you don't roll a double 1, as long as you don't roll Snake Eyes, you've guaranteed the charge from a Chaos Marauder.
Yes.
And just for the context of how powerful that is, statistically, to roll a 9 on 2 dice is a 25% success rate statistically. So you have just changed the odds to like a 98 or a 95% chance of success, which is crazy good, which is why people are like Marauders.
Yeah, that's why people love them. The other thing I will say about them is that once they're in combat, they may look like, naked barbarians, but the fact that they've got that reroll 5-up save is huge. So what you're going to want to do is once you put all this and stacks on them, you're going to set them up obviously 9 inches away from the enemy. In the movement phase, you're also going to run pretty much the rest of your army up, depending on how much deep striking your enemy has, you may want to keep some things back. But let's just say they don't have deep striking, so you move things up. You want to make sure that either your Gorby's Chariot is always going to be as close as he can to the Chaos Marauders, or the Chaos Lord and Karkadrak as just another hero. So when you charge Chaos Marauders in, you want to string them out. So they'll be within 6 inches of your Chaos Lord and Karkadrak, or they'll be within 12 inches, being the general, of your Idolator Lord, Gorby's Chariot. So you can always inspire presence them just to annoy the enemy even more. Which means the idea is that you tie up the enemy for a turn or two. The other thing, because of the ability, the prayer that, you think rerolls hits is good. Yeah, we'll make it reroll wounds as well, because why not? You're going to actually do, unless you're going against certain army builds, an incredible amount of damage. Like if the enemy hasn't screened properly, it really I think you have to fight against Marauders to then be wary of what this tech is.
And you also get your +1 to hit when there's 10 or more models. You get +1 rend, or you get a rend from a no rend to a rend 1 when there's 20 models. So probably charge first with a whole bunch of Marauders. There's going to be a lot of attacks, as you mentioned, with the reroll. So this is just one of the many examples of why this range is very good. But with context, is this range could go up in price. So the points people have been whinging about Marauders for probably a good 6 to 12 months now. The winter FAQ may change this. There may be an FAQ or a points adjustment. So I would not go and go ask Santa for Christmas.
Yeah.
Please, Santa, can I get 120 Marauders? Probably isn't the smartest investment right now.
And this is why I haven't converted up any Marauders. And this is why when like I said, I've done that big long review on the Slates Darkness units, and I talked about Marauders very quickly because I'm like, I think something is going to happen to them in the future. So I don't want to talk about them for too long. What I will say also is I saw, just to quickly in case it comes up in any questions, I saw people say that, if Marauders get debuffed, Slates of Darkness doesn't stand a chance. There's so much to this army past the Marauders. I just want to get that out now. So basically, you've got your Marauders. They've tied up the enemy. They've probably killed the majority of their screen, if not. Also, if you're lucky enough, you've managed to charge them in and you've managed to get a high run roll for your War Shrine, that maybe they're getting that 6-up ignore damage as well. Could be a thing. And they tied up the enemy. So then when you go into like turn 2, the enemy can't retreat and charge, or they can't fly, or they're struggling to teleport. What you're also then going to do is have your second wave, which you've run up the board, your Chaos Knights, and then charge them into whatever the Marauders did not kill. And bear in mind, Chaos Knights. So we've nicely moved on to them now, I think. And
I was going to slightly nudge you. Like, I think the point's been made about the Marauders. Let's talk about these 3 sexy block of 5 Chaos Knights.
Yes. So first off, why are we gone with 5 and not 10? Purely, I find their base is just too big. It's annoyed me because I've converted up a unit purposely for 10, but I will give it a go. But like I say, I think 5, their base is just a bit too big for more than that. So we got, and also it fits the battalion perfectly. So we've got 3 units of 5. Like I said, we're going to have 2 with the Chaos Gorbis Chariot, and then we're going to have 1 with the Chaos Talkin Carcatrack, not on the completely other side of the board, but just a bit more to the side, because you don't want to have all your focus in one area. You want to spread this line out when you make that charge. Chaos Knights, the reason why I've given them lances is because, for me, if I was to give them just a normal weapon, the was it enscrolled weapon, something like that? If I was to give them
weapons, yeah, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, and sorcerer weapons, that's it. If I was to give them that, for me, it's just a bit too boring. I want to have the lances. I want to have on the impact of these lances. Normally, they're just 2 attacks, force the hit, freeze the wound, no rend, and 1 damage. But they've got a 2-inch range. But on the charge, they don't just go like up a little bit. They go from still 2 attacks, 4s, and 3s. But now they're -2 rend and 2 damage. And 2 attacks each. The champion, of course, is going to make a extra attack, which, hey, that's another reason to go 5, because you're getting more of that. But when they make the charge, the big thing with Chaos Knights is they need to kill whatever they're charging into. And in this game of Age of Sigmar, 5 Chaos Knights, yeah, they're good. And you can put rerolls on them and everything else, but chances are, even if they get all their damage through, they're not going to always kill what they're charging. So the fact that they're also getting that D3 mortal wounds on the 2-up really does help with that. And that's something that I found when I looked at building this list, for example. So I've played this list quite a few times now. And I was like, I'm bringing this warband because I think it's cool. I want to make it work, but I'm not too sure. It was like the Carcatrack. It was such a pleasure to see when this works. Don't get me wrong. There was one game, charged them all in, rolled nothing but 1s. But when it does go off, you've got 3d3 mortal wounds from the Knights, and then you've got potentially 4d3 mortal wounds from the Chariot and the Carcatrack together. And then you go to attack, which means that, let's say the Marauders weren't successful in everything you wanted them to do, the mortal wound output they can do a good amount of help to getting rid of enemy screens. It's also what I found, especially when you've got that 2-inch range. So you can then pile some in around. The reason why I've gone with Khorne is because you can give it reroll hit rolls of 1. So then you're hitting on 4s, rerolling 1s, which is nice. But like I said, we're going to have at least 2 near the Gorbis Chariot, which means then you're wounding on 2s. And if you want to, like I said, and this is why I've given the Fiery Orinator to the Gorbis Chariot, is that I'm going to make my Knights reroll failed hits. Because hitting on 4s, I'm just not a fan of rerolling 1s. Just isn't enough rerolls for me. And you can also put, like I mentioned earlier, the Chaos Lord on Carcatrack, or you have Demonic Mount ability on them to make them get +1 to hit and then reroll their charge. So you're not worrying about that.
You really, with Knights, like I play with a lot of Knights, especially in cities, you really need to choose where you put your Knights, because if you go take the ensorcelled weapon equivalent, what you're trying to say there is that you are going to be there for the long time. You're probably going to grind out of combat. But for me, I've always gone with a lance equivalent, because while you don't it makes it a little bit harder to do damage in the long term, you're really getting a whole bunch of boosts on the charge. So if you can set up the charge and just keep charging, keep deleting the mortal wound output, increasing the damage and the rend characteristics, just keep doing that, and you keep doing waves. And as you get attrition in your Chaos Knights or whatever Knights you're running, you can snake around screens a lot easier. So you can, even just getting into a charge, late game into a small hero will cause a world of pain. So choosing where you charge, like don't run a block of Chaos Knights into a big block of 40 models. That is a bad time.
Yeah, I think For me, you need the lances because you need the damage. I openly admit, if you're stuck in combat, your horses are practically doing the same attacks as your lances. But if you go in sorcerer weapons, I really feel like you're better off spending the points on something that's killier, because it just doesn't have the punch for me. What I also would like to say of that, if you go, well, if I'm charging in this massive wave into the enemy, I'm only attacking with one thing first, and I've already said I probably want to attack the knights first. What about everything else? Right, so if you wanted to put your Chaos War Shrines to make 2 of your knights, if everything's in range, of course, reroll saves, you've got that. Or you can put on your knights reroll hit rolls and wound rolls, because your marauders at this point, if they're still there, that's cool. But really, they can all be dead now. Or you can just retreat them out to try and go back to an objective or something.
I think this ties in really nicely. You mentioned a little bit earlier with the Marauder chat is that Marauders are your wave 1, your Chaos Knights are wave 2. If you charge both the Marauders and the Knights in the same turn, you're going to lose the impact of 1 in many cases. So I think having them as waves, having them is probably really good. Especially with the guaranteed teleporting and stuff.
If the enemy can't fly over this wave 1, they're going to struggle. It's something that I found. I think I played this 4 times, this list, and I'll be honest, I've been incredibly lucky, because something we should mention is that I might not get my teleport off, but in 3 of my 4 games, I have. Now, cast on a 7, and Bellicor is getting no pluses to cast. So you're really relying on the average on 2 dice for that. But what I would say is this is where a lot of measuring gets involved, is that you want to make sure that Bellicor is 30 inches away, just more than 30 inches away from any wizard that could deploy on your enemy side, so they won't unbind him, because they've probably got pluses to unbind everything else. But you want him to be wholly within 12 inches of your Marauders, which you want to be very up close to the end of your deployment as possible, in case you don't get the spell off. Basically, what you do, you move your Marauders up, and you do everything I've just said a turn later. That's how it played. And and the funny thing is, in the 4th game I played, I was like, to get practice, to be fair, for reviewing this list, I was like, I need to fail Bellicor's spell, so even if I cast it, I'm going to pretend I didn't. And that's the one time I failed it, and my opponent was very infuriated. And it was a Cities player as well.
Love it. Yeah. And another good comment again, David. Shout out to you, mate. Talking about when enscrolled weapons, not ensorcelled. It is enscrolled weapons are better.
Ensorcelled makes more sense. I don't know.
There is some ensorcelled weapons. I don't know where they are, but I know there is some.
Maybe there's a scroll wrapped around the mace.
We talked about season for taste. We talk about customizing and tailoring your army, and the different marks and how they impact. David's talking about the fact that when you're Nurgle or Slaanesh keyword,
yes.
you get your 6s cause additional damage. Mm-hmm. Nurgle, so when you keyword them Nurgle or Slaanesh, then the Lancers may not be the right decision. Actually, it's the in scrolled weapons that could be the better option. So again, this is like thinking about your list, thinking about what will optimize your current build,
of course,
and then what does if I only owned those in scrolled weapons, then maybe I want to go Slaanesh or Nurgle Mark to get the most out of them. If you don't care, then, or you just want to run them, just do what you want to do.
Yeah, do what you want to do. Of course, I'd say one of the biggest things you do before you even build your list is pick what mark you want before you go into putting things in. I think that's a really good point he's made. After I've had a lot of fun with Khorne, I do want to play Slaanesh, as that's when I can go to an event again. That's how my army's painted. That's how I want to run it. But what I also want to say is, I know we're talking a lot about Khorne here, but just because from what I've heard anyway, I don't know if it's just what I've seen on the internet, but so many people only talk about Nurgle. I thought it was nice to feature why I think Khorne could be quite strong as well. So I just wanted to, it's not all about the 6s to wound to get double damage or to get another +1 to damage, but Dave does make a good point, and that's something that I didn't pick up on. So
no, like it just shows you the variety and the versatility of this book. I played a lot of Nurgle Knights. I played a lot of Khorne Knights. I think I've even played a couple of Tzeentch Knights. So again, season for taste, and who knows, Khorne may get a nice little boost. He is overdue for some love in Broken Realms.
Yes.
You've got 3 units of those, which are pretty cool. I think we kind of know what they do now. But Chaos Spawns are something that I haven't really experienced for a long time. It's been a while since I saw a Chaos Spawn. And when I look at 50 points versus a command point, I probably would have always gone the command point first. Yes. But now that I've re-experienced a Chaos Spawn for 50 points, man, they're good.
They
They
are.
are so good. I played a Gave Spawn list from Beasts of Chaos, where all the heroes then turned into Chaos Spawns on like a 2+. And boy, oh boy, I thought that was like a rule. I was very surprised. I was reintroduced. So the Chaos Spawn, the fact that it's got, a random movement, it's 2d6, it's got 5 wounds, a 5+. Initially, it's not. You just look at it and go, "Oh, okay, radio." But why do you bring it?
I'll be honest. So my opinion on Chaos Spawns, the first time I've ever used them, I used to have a Music Vortex beast back in first edition for Slaves of Darkness when I ran them as Leech. And I love the fact of turning I think I went against a Free People's player now, so like before Cities. And I love turning his Free Guild Guard into Chaos Spawn. It was great. It was the best part of the game. But looking into why I take them now, the reason why I really like them recently is because when I look at the War Scroll, I think it's absolutely terrible until you use it and until you go. So Slaves of Darkness, how I tend to build a lot of my lists, it's the whole army is very combat heavy and everyone just goes forward. And then I'm like, actually, what is at the back defending my rear, apart from some iron golems? And then I'm also like, I've only got 60 points or 50 points left. I can't have a Warcry band. What can I have? It's like a Chaos 5. It's a unit that can go on an objective, and it's also making a 9-inch bubble of enemy deep striking not being allowed. They're absolutely great. The fact that it can have a mark is fantastic. And also it comes into the lore of, like this may have been a Chaos Lord on Karkadrak. And then some bad things happened to him. And then maybe the gods just got bored of him. Who knows? He turned into a Chaos Spawn. They all have a story. And it's also what I found even when I'm playing games and my rewarders have charged into the enemy and they're dealing with that, they still find it funny to see, even if the Chaos Spawn runs, it can still sometimes only move 3 inches. Right, and because it just needs to sit at the back of the board, you really need it because I know we're going to go into what this list doesn't do well at later, but if you're going against a lot of enemy deep striking, you don't have a choice. You need this. And I know you say, like, I'll easily have a command point more. When I'm building most of those Darkness lists, that's one of the first buttons I press. So I'm like, I've already done that. So I'm not going to get to the end and go, 50 points. Oh, need to pay a command point. I've already done it, so it's fine. He's great for just standing at the back of the board.
As a Squeak player, I know the pains of random movement and setting up a hero with 3d6 moves to get a 4 on 3d6. What I will say as well is that when I look at the Chaos Spawn, it's 2d6 attacks, 4s and 4s unless you roll a double. Like it's an okay War Scroll, but for 50 points, it reminds me a lot, and any OG Age of Sigmar player will remember this, is that you used to be able to buy Griff Hounds as individual models, as opposed to being forced to buy, units of 6. So I would normally take 3 Griff Hounds at the front and I'd pin them, one in the center and one on each flank. And that would basically create this amazing bubble of 9 inches where my opponent couldn't actually deep strike. So defensively, I found them really good. And as you mentioned as well, as objective retainers, as something that might sit and zone deny certain deep striking, whether it's eels, whether it's teleporting and summoning. There's a lot of versatility in a Chaos Spawn. I think just the reliance of the movement, again, as a Squig player, I know that 2d6 statistically is a 7. There's lots of times you roll 11 and a 12. There's a lot of times you roll a 2 and a 3. It happens. So I think being defensive rather than offensive is a good way to look at Spawn.
You don't need to rely on it 9 out of 10 times on deploying it and where it's never going to move. Maybe it's on an objective, maybe there's no objectives in my backboard, but how I'm pushing everything forward or the screen's forward, I want to have him maybe in a back corner, so he's making the most of that 9-inch range there. And like I say, 50 points. If he's in range of a hero, he just gets better in combat because the enemy's never going to really, unless it's a tactical purpose, hit him first. So you probably will be able to swing with this guy, maybe. But yeah,
I think it's a better choice than taking a endless spell, for example. So
yeah, exactly, especially in this army, you got some great spell choices, everything else, but you've got no, unless you really build into it, no real way to guarantee getting your spells off. So
Cool. And then the last unit you've got for me is the Chaos War Shrine. So you like them so much that you've taken 2. And I can admit I've never played an army with 2 War Shrines. It's usually just 1. So talk me through, I guess, the rationale. And then I've got a question from Doug that I'll bring up that I'm very curious about as well. So talk me through again what a single War Shrine is doing for you, 2, what a double War Shrine is doing to you, and again, like Khorne and all that good stuff.
Right. So if anyone's not aware what prayers are, and I know we already talked about them a lot, essentially they're like casting spells, but you only roll 1 dice and the requirement is less. And the enemy, unless there's 1% of a circumstance out there, can't deny you. So that's why I like them. Like I mentioned before, this sub-allegiance is getting +1 to prayers. So I really feel like you're doing yourself a disservice if you're not taking 2. I personally only own 1. So if I want to try this out, I'm going to have to proxy a little bit. But from what I've used on TTS, it's worked fantastically well because straight away, 2 War Shrines. So for 170 points each, that's 2 more leaders. It's also going to be behemoths for the battle plans that help towards capturing objectives for that. But the main thing behind them, of course, like I've mentioned, is their prayers, because some of their prayers are great. Some of them are a bit repeated. There's a lot of reroll charge ones there. I think the Slanesh one and the Khorne one are both a little bit like that. But when you
Khorne, so the favor, is it the favor of Khorne you're talking about?
Have you got it up now, have you?
Yeah, it's the favor of Khorne. So you can reroll charge rolls until your next hero phase. In addition, if the unit has a Khorne keyword, you can reroll hit rolls made by melee weapons. Zench, you can reroll save rolls. And then if you got the keyword, you can ignore spells and endless spells on a 4+. Nurgle, you can reroll wound rolls. And if they've got Nurgle keyword +1 to the save, that's where I probably got the most experience having.
I might have seen an Archaon running around with that. That's
Nurgle Knight with the Nurgle War Shrine, just absolutely just charging up and just staying in there and just keeping me with the big block of knights. Slanesh, you can reroll the charge as well as don't take battle shock, and then Favor of Chaos, I guess, is your undivided.
Which you would have heard of.
Yeah, is the reroll hit and wound rolls, and then if it has the keyword, you can reroll charge rolls. So I guess how you want to play your army will dictate which favors, and again, this kind of goes back to the keywords you were talking about earlier. So you can start to see the synergies of the favors as well as why you've marked Khorne as opposed to Nurgle and Slanesh or whatever it might be.
So with this. With the War Shrines, the thing to note about them, if you compare them to the Chariot Priest, these Chaos War Shrines can do any of those prayers. Despite being Khorne, they just won't get the additional benefit, or the unit they pick won't get the additional benefit. So, for example, the only double benefit I'm getting here is if I do the Khorne prayer, or if I use the undivided one on Be'lakor for some reason, it may be useful. And actually, there's actually... because obviously, list building, we're all new and all that sort of thing when we come to it and thinking about it. I would maybe give the Marauders potentially the undivided mark because I'm teleporting them in anyway. They're not going to be wholly within 12 inches of a hero marked with Khorne probably anyway. So now it just means if I roll a double one, I then get to tell my opponent I'm now re-rolling this.
And that's because the favors of the Ruinous Powers happens at the start of the hero phase. So you would apply the favor first, and then you would go for the teleporting shenanigans. So
and it makes sense because if you teleport them first, you're going to be out of range for your shrines. But also, like something you mentioned, it's not like spells where you can do them like willy-nilly throughout your hero phase. With this, you have to don't make the mistake of going, Be'lakor's just going to cast Mystic Shield himself for some reason, and then I'm going to do my prayers. Depending on your opponent, but like, just you want to play it right at the end of the day, don't you? So maybe that's something you could do. The reason I like it, and again, you could go, well, you've gone with Khorne, and your other priest can do the reroll hit rolls, right? Yeah, but to be honest, with these War Shrines, I'm just doing the undivided one to get the reroll hits and wins, or I'm probably just doing each one to get the reroll saves. Again, like you said, in Nurgle, it's very popular for that +1 save. But I think there are uses for it here. And the fact that I really can't say enough that you're only failing on a 1 is huge. Like, I think there's been very few times I've failed this and I've had running idolators. I've had about 5 or 6 games. So
there's probably a really good argument that Favor of Zench probably has a really good place right now in the meta, knowing that you've got Lord Croak who's doing really powerful stuff that you're probably not going to get your Be'lakor spell off. You're walking up the board. You've got Lord Croak just hiding behind this amazing bubble of just burninating things with salamanders, and obviously doing mortal wounds and stuff with spells. But when I look at the Favors of Zench, being able to ignore spells and endless spells on a 4+, and knowing that, let's say, for example, even Techless just going straight up, no Be'lakor, you can't teleport, unless obviously you get your 5+ Dark Prophecy stuff, or no, the dark stuff, on a 5+ you can do thing. You could literally, like, that would actually apply really well to ignore the effects of spells and endless spells. So I think, again, season for taste. But there's arguments, and it depends on your meta, it depends on where you're playing, depends on who your opponents are. If you are in a meta that is high magic right now, there's lots of Hallowheart, Zench, a lot of that stuff. Who knows what Slaanesh is going to bring to the table, but maybe that is a good mark.
Yeah. What I would say, though, is you'll find in Slaves of Darkness, something I mentioned, like when you read the War Scroll and you think they're right, but they could be better. There's so many ways to buff them. In fact, there's so many ways to buff them that some of them repeat themselves. So, for example, if I'm going the Mark of Each anyway, I'm wholly within 12 inches of my general, I get a 5+ save against endless spells and spells. So, again, if you put the prayer on them, it means you're not relying on being in range of your general. But it's just something that might... It's funny how they've given Zeech, although it's on a 4+, so it's better than prayer. They could have, I don't know, pick a Zeech unit and they get +2 to cast. I don't know if that would work, but just something that makes it not a repeat, as an example. But then again, it's like I said, my Khorne. I'm not making use of these guys for my Khorne prayers because my other Gore Beast is doing it. They're very useful. Also, just to say about them, they're given the aura of the protection of the dark gods, I believe it's called. So you get in there 18-inch, and again, most things in this book are wholly within range, so wholly within 18 inches. I get in the 6+ death save, ward save, whatever you want to call it, down prevention, and that's huge, especially when you've got 2 of them. Now, in case you're a bit new, it doesn't mean that you combine the aura signs of both of them. It just means that you have 2. I mean, I'm not running them, like if I was compared to my hands, I'm not running them straight like this, but when you put them a good... I don't know, even 18 inches apart, you're covering a huge amount of the board. And one of the things, just to quickly say, of the Warcry stuff is that some people go, well, they can't take a mark. Yes, but they are still Slaves of Darkness, so they will. The Slaves of Darkness mortal, so they will benefit from that. And the great thing, just to say about the War Shrines, when you're comparing them to a good example, I'm sure people may bring up, a Chaos Sorcerer Lord on foot, right? He's got Demonic Power Spell. We're all familiar with it because we probably were aware of it in first edition, where you could use it on like anything that Chaos. Basically, you pick one of your units wholly within, I think it's 12, it may be 18, and get it mixed up with his save ability.
Let's go with 12, and if it's 18, it's a bonus. But
yeah, exactly. Let's say 12. And actually, no, to be fair, I think it is 12 because I think that's why I'm bringing up this point. You make a unit be able to reroll hit rolls and wound rolls. But with the Chaos War Shrine, and I think this is why I'm bringing it up, so I think it is 12 inches, you have an 18-inch range. So it's huge. And your base is bigger. Yeah. And War Shrines, 170 points. It's not a lot at all.
I mean, you 12-win model. You are spending almost 350 for this combination, but I think what you mentioned is you're building redundancy. And sometimes when I see one Chaos War Shrine on the table, I know that I want to delete that as quick as possible, or at least reduce it to a protection of the gods down to at least a 9 or a 6, because I know that the Chaos Knights, for example, are going to run outside of the buff if I slow down the War Shrine the protection. Yeah. So if I can put some chip damage, and look, it's a 4+ armor save, it's all it's going to take is 5 wounds, and that could be a little bit of spell casting or a little bit of shooting, then that changes the game. And I find Chaos Knight players play a lot cagier when that bubble is down. But by having 2 of those War Shrines, it does mean that you've got redundant.
The other one as well.
One might have the 18, mine might be reduced down to 12 or 9 or 6. And you can kind of rotate the powers. So it's something to consider, but I like it. I like the fact. I do want to just ask a quick question before we move into the next list.
Yeah, sure.
Myself, Doug, thanks for dropping in. Mention, do you see the value of mixing keywords like having the first wave maybe as Slanesh, then having the second wave maybe as Khorne? Do you see, because obviously you've gone straight up Khorne for most of this army. Do you see a mix of having, you know, those three bubbles that I talked about, the three centers of power, you know, one is Nurgle, one is Slanesh, one is Khorne? Or do you think it's just better having things tied to the general?
I think, for how I play anyway, it's better to have things tied to general. But something I did mention probably about, it may have been, I don't know when he asked the question, but may have already covered this. But when I said, actually, I might make them Marauders now, undivided. So now they're re-rolling that charge in case they fail. So there is purpose to this, because the Marauders, for example, they are the first wave. They're not benefiting from a hero buff in this list, because there's no way I'm going to get a hero up close enough to them to wholly be within 12, especially how I'm stretching them out to benefit. So yeah, there are. And before we discuss this list, I would have said, no, just make them Khorne. Everything else is Khorne. It makes sense. But, you know, when you talk about things in detail, there is so, you know, if you spend more time doing it, you know, and there's nothing wrong with pulling apart a list and going, what can I change here? What can I change here? For me, one of the reasons I mark, I think, just one mark, depending on whatever God I go for, is it's just easier to keep on top of. Don't get me wrong, if I've been playing this army for about 3 years, and let's say they haven't got a new book or whatever, and it still works the same, I probably will be playing the army differently, because I think really when you want to mix up the marks for more than just like I painted these guys up as Nurgle and I painted these guys up as Khorne and everything else, it takes experience. Like, I reckon, like, if you want to run those multi-mark like units, you could probably do it well, but you need to be very on your ball, because it won't be a very forgiving list, because, like, I don't know, you make Chaos Knights Nurgle, so they get the +1 damage, so they get the 6, and then you give them a demonic mount, blah 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 Nurgle, and then the enemy just shoots off the Chaos on demonic mount, and you go, well, now their mark can't benefit from any other hero on the table. Especially, if
rules are an issue, I'd highly recommend something like AOS reminders that could obviously give you your rules and help you with those things. But you raise a really good point as well, that if you have these centers of power, and let's say you've got 5 Chaos Knights, and let's say a Lord on Kakadrak, and let's say that little combination is Nurgle, but your general is Khorne, and, you know, majority of your army is Khorne. By taking out that one buff piece and removing that little Nurgle synergy, straight up you lose a little bit of the efficiency. So I think I can see where there's value in redundancy and having everything marked, but at the same time there's also other ways you can build these centers of power. So I think it's just keeping in mind how comfortable you are, what's going to work for you the most. But I definitely see value in, I think there is value, and I've played against armies that have had multi marks, so different marks within the army, but it makes you work a little bit harder, but it also does give you more rewards.
Oh, absolutely. And I think you can definitely make it work, especially if you're new to the army, though. Stick to one mark. And what I would also like to say about the marks, it's something that I thought of when I first wanted to do this army. Like I said, I themed my army around Slanesh. Don't for any reason think that you've got your guys painted as Khorne. Can I run them as Nurgle? Just look at these marks as different, like, mini sub-allegiances to your games. Just look at them as new rules. There's no reason why, because there was the thing of like, oh, should I paint these guys up as Nurgle because I want to give them the do however you want. I just wanted to make that point clear. But yeah, so to Doug, you can do that. Off the ball though, it's easier just to do it all one mark, and I think it takes a bit of play testing as well to see what you've got to ask yourself, and what are you really, like you said, you can get rewarded heavily for it, but what are you really going for? What rewards do you want?
No, that's great. And as someone in the chat had also mentioned as well, that if you wanted to go multi-mark, maybe Ravengers might be better for you than the Idolators. So being able to switch your general each turn. So if that's kind of the route you want to go with, maybe Idolators isn't the best for you, but at the same time, you can absolutely do it. Mikey, any final thoughts? I think this is a nice little combination of units. You've definitely showed one play style, and we've gone very in depth with this, which is really cool.
Yes.
I'm sure there's going to be a lot of synergies in the second one.
Yeah.
So we might skip over some things, but at the same time, I'm sure there's some cool list tech in here. So when we talk about list number 2, and I'll just time mark this, you've got the second list, which is an idolator list. You have come from a different realm. So I'm imagining right now, because you don't have any artifacts, the mortal realm that your army is coming from is just for the artifact. That's really...
Well, it's, to be honest with you, Anthony, it's because I'm Age Nagash and I want to be from Shaiish.
Well, the first one wasn't.
I know. Yeah, it's literally just for whatever I want. I wanted to give some variety, the reroll charge, and then essentially it is exactly for the artifact. So you're going to see, like I said, there's a few things that are in this list that are in the other one, but I try to make it a little bit different as well. So, but for example, we won't talk about Better for about 10 minutes because we already discussed what we could do.
So friends of the podcast, I'll read out the army list so you can't see the visuals. So you do have the Idolator Lord on Chaos Chariot. Is this the same loadout, Mikey? You've got the General with the Fiery Orator, Orator.
Exactly.
Be'lakor has got the Marks of Darkness. So both of those are consistent to the first list.
I should just say the Master of Darkness is the teleport. That's what allows them to do
teleport. So when Mikey was talking about the teleport before, it's not coming from the War Scroll. It is coming from the Mask of Darkness spell. So I think you said cast on a 7. We do have something different. We do have the Slaves to Darkness Demon Prince that is coming in with an axe with the Grave Sand Brooch. That's the Shaiish artifact. Is it reroll ones to save?
Reroll ones to save, yeah.
Yep. Also marked as Khorne. You've also got a Chaos Lord. So we've got no Kakadrak this time, but we do have a Chaos Lord with the Reaper Blade and the Demon-bound Steel. Also marked with Khorne. Now, we know that Idolators is going to give us benefits to make our Warcry warbands or our Cultists battle line. So you've gone in and you've double tapped here and you've gone 9 to Untamed Beasts, 8 Iron Golems. You've also got your 5 Chaos Knights with Khorne, similar loadout. 10 Chaos Chosen. Good to see some Chosen back. Yep. It's been a while since I've seen Chosen being thrown around the board from Sail the Faithless. You've got 5 Chaos Chosen again, marked Khorne. You've got 5 Chaos Warhounds that are allies. Ooh. You've also got a War Shrine. You've also taken a command point, and you've taken the Realm Scourge Rupture Endless spell.
Yes. So with this list, like I said, I wanted to make it a bit different. I wanted to also try out stuff like you mentioned. You haven't seen Chosen for a while. I wanted to see what I could do with them. So this list. And like I say, I wanted to take the Chaos Chariot.
It's been a long time since I've seen Sail the Faceless with a box of Chosen. They get thrown up into my line. And it's been a long time, so it's nice to see them back.
Yes, and they will not be doing that this time around. I can assure you. They'll be moving fairly slowly towards you, but when they'll get you, it'll hurt. Okay, so the reason why we've gone the Idolator's Lord on Chaos Chariot this time, of course, he's not the Gorby, so he's not combat effective. Essentially, he's 30 points cheaper, and he's given me the same aura size. So that 12-inch range from the chariot is quite big. The reason we go on Fiery Orator again is just so you can double do the prayer to do rerolls the hits. And Mark of Khorne, and then so that's pretty much what his job is. Essentially, what the Gorby's chariot was doing, but not combat orientated. He's still got the Great Blade, so he can swing if he needs to. So we've got that. We've got Be'lakor again. This time, though, he's not doing the whole teleporting shenanigan with Marauders. Of course, if you want to risk teleporting 10 Chosen into the front of your enemy and then hope to get a 9-inch charge, you're more than welcome. But personally, I decided not to. So the reason why he's in is because he's a 2-cast wizard at the end of the day, and I want him to do the Endless Spell, which, if you don't mind, I'll get to now. So what the Endless Spell can do, essentially, you set up wholly within 9 inches of him. So again, it's one of those funny ones where you want him to be as close to the end of your deployment, but far enough away so the enemy can't unbind him. Because, like I say, in my experience, I tend to play against people who've got silly plus to the cast. So you want to have at least that one turn to cast this Endless Spell. Essentially, what you do is a predatory one. So you set it up wholly within 9 inches, and then it can move 9 inches. And any enemy units it comes across, it moves into essentially and over. Or any enemy units it finishes within 1 inch off, take D3 mortal wounds. And then they also have their, I think it's their movement half.
Movement characteristic. Movement characteristic. Until the end of the battle round. Half the movement characteristic of each unit that the model has passed across. And each other unit that's within 1 inches at the end of the movement.
Yes. And so the D for more wounds is lovely, but really, if you can time it well, the half in the movement is the best thing. Because
it's similar to Geminids. Geminids, you know, the D3 mortal wounds are nice, but it's the -1 to hit and the -1 attack that you're really taking Geminids for. And this is the same, like changing a movement characteristic and potentially pinning someone in their deployment and not going for objectives. That's brutal.
It's, for example, it's just to quickly talk about it, like the spell laws from the Legions of the Nagash book. When it came out, some people were like, oh, they don't really seem very offensive. I love them because I know you played it as well. Debuffing your enemy, like Spectral Grasp was great, especially if you cast it
Fading Vigor.
Yeah, Fading Vigor as well. Oh god. But anyway, back with Slade's Darkness. The other reason I love this endless spell is because it won't be used against you, because it can only move forward. It can't go turn around, it can't move side to side, it can just move in direction it is set up, which makes it the best endless spell I have personally used. Like, the reason, and I say that because I tend to not use predatory ender spells, because when I have, they always get turned around and hit me, and I wish I didn't spend points to them. In this case, the enemy can unbind it. Sure, they're wasted and unbound, and better call if he's still far enough away, because there's need to be close to marauders. Just chuck it again. And it's that base as well. You're moving up towards the enemy, and ideally, I'm setting up better core in the middle, so it's just going to take a big wide range of that. And then when we go into the Slaves of Darkness Demon Prince, just to say, you can use his command trait, because he's Khorne, that makes enemy units within 18 inches of him have to half their run and charge rolls, because he makes the ground all slippy with blood. So I don't want to rely too much on that Realmscape Rupture, whatever it's called, because the enemy can unbind it and stuff, but it's something they're going to have to waste a spell on. Some armies can only cast 1 or 2 spells. So if you can double tap that with the Slaves of Darkness one though as well, your slow moving army suddenly doesn't seem that slow anymore. So that's what I like there. And then talking about the Slaves of Darkness Demon Prince, why has he got an axe? He's Khorne. I think enough said with that one. But the other reason I like it, and to be actually that ties into why he's Khorne, is because it's a freeze to hit, freeze to wound, I believe. But
3s and 3s demonic axe.
Yep, with a demonic axe. Yep. So, but he's re-rolling 1s to hit. If he made a charge move, he's +1 to hit as well. So 2 up re-rolling 1s. And then it's just nice because it's 2 damage that, and the sword is D3, right?
The Hellforged sword is D3. So
yeah, and like
attack.
we mentioned with the Great Blade earlier when we talked about the battalion, I just like the reliability of the 2, and also he's got talons as well, which are cool. They can do some damage. But he's also got the Graysand Brooch, because basically he's got a 3-up save. He's rerolling 1s now, and he always strikes first in the combat phase unless the enemy has a similar ability to blah 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 blah. So the enemy, even if they try and shoot him off the board, they're going to have to throw more at him than he's frankly worth. And
by the way, if you want to know why he's fighting first, it's because of Immortal Champion. So that's on the War Scroll. So that's really powerful. And something to consider as well is the tournament that I just come from literally 2 weeks ago. Majority of the deployment zones that I got to fight in, there was only 18 inches between us. They were those longer 15-inch deployments, which means there was a 9-inch gap between the middle line. So there was only 18 inches. So if I think about a 12-inch move, that's not hard to get into combat in first turn. It's a good little base size, 3 up, re-rolling 1s, always fighting first. That's brutal. Like, you could almost run 2 of these and just have these 2 on the flanks, just absolutely harassing your opponent while you got your knights run up at center of the board. Like, there's just the Demon Princes. I know when this book very first come out and everyone found a busted way to bring the Nurgle Demon Prince.
Yeah, which I mean, I'll be honest. I played it against my mate Jamie mentioned earlier, and we were like, we'll test out the really powerful version of it. And as soon as I went, like, Nagash killed himself with his attacks as an example. And it was just like, there's no way this was meant to how it was to be. So I know some people were shocked when it got changed, but it's like, it's definitely not. So with that change, the Khorne command ability is the best one from that War Scroll, in my honest opinion. And this guy with his command B, just to say, has to be in the hero phase. Don't think because it's to do with movement, he's going to do it in the movement phase or in the enemy's movement phase. So it's one of those things where it's not too risky because you can see where this guy's going to go, but you have to plan ahead with it. And then this guy, Demon Prince, is 210 points.
And the corn ability allows you to, in the hero phase, it's a command ability, so you got to spend a CP, but it is going to allow you to run and charge until the next hero phase. Oh, within 18 inches of them. Okay, cool. Yeah. So if you do so until the next hero phase, run and charge rolls made for the enemy units within 18 or halves. That's interesting. So even if you failed your opponent, yeah, okay, that's interesting.
So also it's not wholly within 18 inches, so it's a huge bubble.
No, just within.
So that's really good. Bear in mind he can fly as well, so he's easy to move around everywhere. A Demon Prince for me, for example, there's another sub-legions that really specializes in them, and I'm tempted to build and convert 5 of them and Bellacore because I think they're really nice. But yeah, so he's great, and it's also just nice to have one thing that always fights first because, like I said, it's strong, and with how survivable this guy is, it's really solid. So you've got that. You also have the Chaos Lords. Why is he in there? Because he's in quite a lot of those Darkness lists purely because of his command ability. That at the start of the combat phase, you pick a Slaves of Darkness, might be Mortals unit, hold within 12 inches of him, and they can piling attack twice that combat phase. Now, that's not piling attacking twice. This isn't Feeding Frenzy, but it's still pretty strong. And that's why he's in there for 110 points. He's also doing 7 wounds, 4 up save. And if he accidentally is tagged in combat, he can do a little bit of hurt, which is why I like him. And he's also another 12-inch reroll ones.
And it is mortal slaves to darkness keyworded. So
it's
that's
so much of the stuff is mortal. So for example, actually I remember because something that came up, you couldn't make the Demon Prince, for example, attack twice. That's not going to happen. But as we'll get to, we've got Chosen. They're getting that. So we've got that, okay? And then we've got the 9
untamed beasts. So we know that one of the big reasons these guys come into lists is because they have a free move at the start of the battle before the round commences.
Yeah, that's why they're in the list, 100%. And it's a unit.
No other reason.
Well, it's a unit for 70 points, right? So you can. The good thing about this list is something I should mention as well. This list has got a lot of drops. Okay, bear that in mind. But it means you've got so many units for taking objectives and so many units to move around. But what I like about the Untamed Beast is, so like I said, you've got your main block in the middle where you've got your Chosen. You're also going to have your 2 Chaos War Shrines on the edges of it. You're going to have your Chariot there. You're going to have your Chaos Lord in that block. So a huge focus in the middle. Your Untamed Beasts are either going to make that pre-game move and just set up a front screen. Hopefully, you want to be careful with this because you want to also set up that endless spell. So you don't want to move your Untamed Beast up and go, oh crap, no, my endless spell is going to dig into them and kill them. So just be careful your movement, but you just want to set up a screen really. So hopefully you will have a endless spell screen, Untamed Beasts, and then if the enemy doesn't have much deep striking, you can afford the 10 Chaos Warhounds, which we'll get to later, to be another screen for your Chosen. So this very vulnerable unit, which is very killy, but can die if it gets hit hard, is now pretty solid. So that's what the Untamed Beast is for. Again, if the enemy's got a lot of deep striking, it's just another unit you can use to screen, because I know it doesn't sound like many big base sizes, but they're not all 25 millimeters, and the Lion has I think like a 40 millimeter base or something, so it stretches out quite far.
One other thing I really like about the Untamed Beast that we haven't talked about yet is it has the ability to run and charge. So if you need to, like that could you get the free 6-inch move. I could see a world where you take 2 of these units, one on either flank potentially. One you run up the board and tag an opponent from either side. Or you could be even just using them the same way I use my Aether Wings in cities, which is just a very cheap body to run up and score objectives early on. And if an opponent kills them, who cares? They're Aether Wings. But if they don't kill them, then there's going to be their harassing, annoying. So I can kind of split the damage onto those guys and away from my juicy Chaos Knights. or they're just sitting there scoring objectives while people ignore the Untamed Beast. So I do like one. I could see a world where two might be valuable as well.
Yes.
And the free 6-inch move, now that there's more deep striking, more teleporting than there has been in the last couple of years, pushing your opponent an additional 6 inches away from your juicy center, stopping potentially, a turn one charging.
Yeah, if you've got like a heavy alpha strike, it's going to help.
Like just pushing them back further, a deep striking from the sky like Stormcast, that's valuable.
Yes. And because same Iron Golems, fortunately, you can't give them the mark of the Chaos auras, but in a nice way, it gives you a little bit of freedom because you're not worried about them being Holy Within 12. They can basically do their own thing. Something else I tried out with them is to just use them as a cheap screen for the Chaos Knights because they can surprisingly move very fast, like you mentioned. So they can be useful for that. And I'll be honest, when I was first building these lists, I haven't sent it to you, but the first list basically only includes Warcry units. And it was to try and do what I did with Marauders, but with Untamed Beast. And I'll just say they just don't have the same output, unfortunately. But you could, if you wanted to, like easily, without a teleport, charge a block of 40 or 36, roughly, something like that. Untamed Beast into the enemy turn one, just to try and, I don't know, annoy them if you wanted to. So you've got them, right? They do also have a shooting attack, which is just deserves a shout out for a Chaos unit that has a shooting attack. Okay, and then you've got the 2 units of 8 Untamed Beasts. So these guys, I know you've talked about them already, Anthony. They are just going to sit on hopefully one of your back objectives, maybe one in the middle, and just stay there.
That's Iron Golems.
Yeah, that's the one. Oh, sorry. You can try and make them very survivable and charge into the enemy. But the way I do them is just sit on objective, just because they've got that 4-up reroll and save.
I mentioned the game I played not long ago against, it was an Ever-Chosen list. So it was Archaon, a couple of units of Varangard, and it was a big block, like I mentioned, of Iron Golems. And my opponent, who I thought did a really good job, he teleported the Iron Golems into the center of the board. We're playing focal points, and he did it as a defensive mechanism, knowing that Iron Golems are probably better when they receive the charge than when they are charged. When they charge, but having that big block, especially with the hero, I think the hero or the ogre has 3 wounds. It is a super durable unit, that Iron Golem. So that might also be a nice little unit to take Bellacor's teleport.
It's something I thought about. So, like I said, when I wanted to do Untamed Beasts, I did think because they could charge the enemy straight away. But the other thing I did think about was just, if you can, just string out as many, it's 4 times 8, isn't it? So what's that, 32? 32 Iron Golems stretched out in the middle of the field just to annoy the enemy. Because like you say, that doesn't count as a normal move. And as long as they don't make a normal move, they're re-rolling their saves, which makes them arguably the most valuable Warcry unit to date.
And their shooting attack is not bad too as well. Like that did some chip damage to my Gargants, which kind of annoyed me. They did more damage than I expected.
Yeah, if you're a save that's not particularly great, like, well, I know, if you haven't got, like a 3-up rerolling 1 or something, yeah, they're going to chuck a lot of shots at you, especially if you've got a big block of them, and it's a nice way for the enemy to, if they just slowly move towards your Iron Golems, to kick them off on an objective. If they don't make the charge, you're going to throw some rocks at them next turn. So it's a nice little trick. Hey, with these Warcry units, anything else they can have is a benefit. So yeah, that is the Iron Golems. You then have the 5 Chaos Knights, which again, Lances, Khorne, same as before, but they are essentially going to be not in the center like most of your stuff. They are going to be with your Demon Prince as a flanking force. Because the idea is, if you have everything in the middle, as cool as that sounds, and it's like a big base, you just move forward. It's not, however you think it's going to go to plan, it's not going to work, unfortunately. Sorry. You need to have at least another threat. And even like just having a threat in the middle and the flanks, some people would say that's not enough, but you need to have something. And the Chaos Knights can, like we said, can do a lot of damage. But the Demon Prince, as an extra little thing, let's say, for God's sake, the Chaos Knights are being countercharged and now they're not very good in combat, shall we say. Your Demon Prince, who happens to be within 3 inches, goes, yeah, I'm just going to attack first. And then with his help, you may have cleared the enemy unit that's attacked you. So then when it comes to your turn, you're off on your merry ponies again going towards the enemy. So it's a nice little combo because his command ability is so big. You can, if you've got the edge of the board here, you can have the knights lined up, and then you can have him in the just at the edge here. So his 18 aura is still big, and he's on the end, so the enemy's going to have to move to deal with him.
And the Realm Scourge Rupture as well can also reduce the amount of charging, or at least make it a lot harder to get in, because you are reducing the movement or the run, was it?
It reduces the movement, but the Demon Prince is going to make it harder for the enemy to make that charge because they have to halve it, which means they can't make a they can't make a guaranteed 3-inch charge at that point, can they? Like,
so basically what you're doing is you're just increasing the likelihood of being able to charge, and with some good positional play, you could almost mitigate the ability for your opponent to charge you, because you're outside of that 12-inch charge threat, because you've halved the movement. And, regardless if they move half movement, so 6 turns to 3 or 8 turns to 4, they're still outside the 12. So with some really good play, you could just counter charges by just straight up denying them.
Hey, if the enemy want to line up their nice juicy unit that's not very defensible but very killy 3 inches away from my knights for my next turn, brilliant. I'm happy with that.
You've got 2 units of Chaos Chosen, and we've also got the Warhounds. The Warhounds an interesting one. You mentioned the screens; they are allies as well. Mm-hmm. What's the deal with the Chosen? Why Chosen coming in? And because last just had more Chaos Knights, right? Why not boost up those Iron Golems? Why not increase the Chaos Knights? What are they bringing to the table? These Chosen.
Chosen, for me, of what I've used in Slaves of Darkness, have one of the most reliable damage outputs, because each one of them is making 3 attacks, hitting on 3s, wounded on 3s, -1 rend, 1 damage. If they get any 6s to hit, that's a mortal wound in addition to normal damage. So, like I said, you've got so many screens protecting these Chaos Chosen, and effectively you're kind of you've deployed the unit of 5 ahead of the unit of 10. So if anything, if they can get to your Chosen, they're killing the unit of 5, and they're quite closely compacted, so then your unit of 10 can go in. And let me tell you, when you have a unit of 10 piling and attacking twice in a turn, and then you've put the prayers from the War Shrine on them, so they're rerolling all failed hit rolls and all failed wound rolls, there's not a lot that is going to withstand that. And I know the enemy can try find ways around it. If I'm putting so much investment on making screens at the front, what about my rear end? What about if someone teleports behind me and does the marauder fit? But you can mitigate that by just keeping one of the units a little bit more back. But because you've got this such tight bubble, which the enemy can't really do much about unless they've got heavy shooting, it's going to slowly get to the enemy that's really debuffed in their movement. And with that, it's going to only enhance your chances, like we said with the Knights, getting your charge off. And those Chosen, like, just thinking about it, so if they make 3 attacks each and you've got 10 of them, what I would say is they've got a 1-inch range on their weapons. So you might not get all of them in, but let's say live in the dream world where you do. That is, that'd be 60 attacks, 62, because the champion would attack twice and he gets another one. Hit on 3s, rerolling 1s. Hit on 3s, but you've put the War Shrine on them. So hit on 3s, rerolling all fails. Wounded on 2s because they're in range of your general. Rerolling all failed wound rolls. -1 rend, 1 damage. Any 6s you got to hit is an additional more wounds. Like, I had 6 of them I had a game 2 days ago. 6 of them cleared a Terrorgeist, like, on full wounds. Like, it's pretty.
Yeah, and the chat is just straight up just saying that they're underrated. I think is a really good comment.
I think that's their problem.
Which is why back in the day, Sail the Faithless being able to teleport them up the board was always the trick. You'd take a big block or a small block, usually about 20, you throw them up the board because you would counteract the slowness. But the way you counteract the slowness here is by making your opponent slow. So instead of you speeding your army up, and you could add chronomatic cogs in your list if you want to speed them up, you could use the teleport from Bellicor, or you could slow down your opponent. And I think that's a nice way to reintroduce them into the game, because Chosen, despite being fine cast, they are a good unit, but they have some challenges.
Yeah, but I'll say, like, for example, for my ones I want to do at some point is I'm using, because mine's all Greek themed and stuff, using Medusae bodies and stuff. But what I've seen loads of people do, and it's really quite a good and easy way to do it, is just get some Stormcast. if you can get them from the Conquest magazines. And as long as you take through the effort of trimming off the bloody lightning bolt symbols, it looks great. So you can.
Warhammer community blog by one of the guys in my community, Travis Cooper, who actually converted a whole Slaves to Darkness army out of Stormcast Eternals. And they look sick. They look so good. So it's awesome that you've reconsidered using a different model to actually be chosen, because they would look different, they would look unique. But yeah, definitely trim off the Stormcast, make them, maybe head swap, do some things.
Yeah, my mate, he got a set of chosen from Warhammer World, and then he converted up from Stormcast, and the Stormcast are just so much bigger than them, and they look so much better, because otherwise the chosen, especially compared to the new Chaos Warriors, just like it's like you're looking at the book and go, right, so the Marauders are really powerful, but they're the weakest, and then the chosen are meant to be really cool, but then their models are a bit make your own. So basically I fixed that by making the enemy slower and essentially shielding your chosen with everything else in your army. But when you get to deliver that payload, it really hurts. Like I said, the Terrorgeist situation is because the enemy managed to charge me with a Terrorgeist, and I made sure it paid with its life. And that was a Terrorgeist with 6 attacks, obviously attacking twice, everything else. So you've got that nice counter. And I think it's just nice to get some chosen back in the spotlight again. I think it's nice to talk about them. And they're just so reliable with freeze and then you can buff it. So yeah, it's great.
And the Chaos Warhounds are a cheap screen. They've got some good movement with 10. Really like the ability to be able to, if you want to run with them, it's just a flat 6 as opposed to making a run roll. But it says you add 6 to the movement characteristic, which I thought was interesting. So it doesn't. So if you declare that the unit runs, do not make a run roll. Instead, add 6 to the movement characteristic of models in the phase.
I haven't read an FAQ, but I'd read that so you could charge if you wanted to, but I'm not too sure, because you're not making a run move, are you?
It doesn't say that you run. You just. But I don't know. But either way, like even.
Beast of Chaos FAQ out there somewhere.
At worst, getting a flat 6 on your run is awesome. If it does allow you still to charge, not that Chaos Warhounds are going to do amazing stuff in combat, but it could just slow down your opponent just that little bit longer so that your chosen moves up the board.
Right. So with this list in particular, because the chosen are slow and I was looking at screens, I was thinking, what slaves does have? And to be honest, same base size, you could go Chaos Marauder Horseman, but Chaos Warhounds, in all honesty, when I did my long review for Beast of Chaos, I talked about them so much because I love my doggies. In Legions of Nagash, I run so many Direballs because I think they are arguably the best unit in the entire game for what they are. They're fantastic.
I've got 25 Wolves sitting behind me.
It's the same. They're so good. And they count as battle lines, so they're great. But anyway, enough talking about death. Back to this. Sorry, it's just a habit. So the Chaos Warhounds, they're better than Direwolves as a screen, because you're getting, they're only one wound model, but you're getting double the models. And for 80 points, I really can't, I haven't measured it out, but I can't stress how big of a range that is. I played around with a list of this where I had 2 units of Chaos Warhounds. And if the enemy's got loads of deep strike and they want to do behind me, I can literally just stretch them out behind me and they can't go in my backfield. For 80 points, don't get me wrong, when they get hit, they're going to melt so quickly. But that's fine. They've already wasted a turn of the enemies. And then, like, if the enemy wants to use charging their Terrorgeist and then they've killed them and it's going to feed and frenzy and attack again, absolutely fine, because then there's probably the Untamed Beast they need to chew through as well. Like,
you could manipulate the board as well, because you've got 10 models. So unlike Dire Wolves, which are 2 wounds apiece but 5 models, because you've got 10 cavalry bases, you can manipulate the board in such a way that you can really deny your opponent getting in behind your screen, even if they fly, because you're taking advantage of those large base sizes of the Terrorgeist, for example, or a Maw Crusher, and just straight up not allowing them to be in because you're screening so well. So I did play against 2 units of Warhounds the other week in the Beast of Chaos army, and they did die to a stiff breeze.
Oh yeah.
But I think offensively, you don't think about it that way. Defensively, they're securing objectives, they're taking damage, they are tagging units. Even if you just tag at the end of the unit, so you force the pile in towards the Warhounds instead of going into the Knights or the Demon Prince. And then add the fact that you're halving or minimizing charges and movement with the other stuff. this 80 points is just straight up annoying.
Yes.
It's just annoying. If your opponent doesn't have shooting, if your opponent is a combat-only army, this will be annoying because you'll waste a round of combat to get rid of them. If they're shooting, you can just pop them off. But hey, that shooting that is
shooting as well. Doing that.
It means your shooting isn't going into Shrine, your Demon Prince, Be'lakor.
Yeah, the idea of this list is causing lots of problems for your opponent. So they're going to have to wait and try and deal with those problems until, like I say, you're chosen to ride, because they're the big damage. Don't get me wrong, if your Knights and the Demon Prince has a lovely time on the flank and just comes around to join the rest of the force, brilliant. They're then going to get +1 to wound as well. What I'd say is that, like, just quickly skipping to Be'lakor, I gave him Mask of Darkness just because I think the teleport spell is just such a useful spell to have. But you can take the, I'm going to forget what it's called now, but there's the one that makes the enemy, if basically pick an enemy unit, you roll a dice for each model in that unit. On a 6-up, for each one of those dice, they take a mortal wound. If they take any damage from it, they can't move, I believe it is. Which is like, if you just really want to muck around. And also, remember, Be'lakor's picked something, so on a 5-up, that thing can do what it wants. Like, I wanted to make this list very different. The first one was all about waves upon waves upon waves and tying up your opponent. This one is just nerfing your opponent to all hell until you can get there. And because Chosen are very much not in the spotlight at all and not really many people take them, I don't feel bad at all of trying to make this list as annoying to the enemy as possible. Like, this feels
like Gloomspite Gits debuff version 2. Everyone got really annoyed that Gits were giving -1 to hit everywhere and debuffing and -2, -3. You're playing this game in a different way. You're debuffing movement, and Age of Sigmar players know that this game is one on movement. They're not one in combat or spell casting. So being able to deny your opponent getting to the objectives, early objectives, some objectives, you start accumulating points over time. So by stopping them maximum scoring, this could be quite this is a really cool strategy, and I like your take on the Slaves to Darkness. It's certainly a little bit different than the Darkfire Demon Riff, the going down, doubling down into the Marauders. It's a different style of list, and I really like it. So I was just gonna say, like, when I do list builds, like I've started to do like reviews and stuff on my channel as well, and it's like, I'll openly admit sometimes my lists, they're not the most competitive list. Will they win tournaments? Probably not, but I try and make them have a strategic, edge to them, but make them different. Because what I get fed up with some battle times, I'll be honest, everyone just focuses on one thing, and then that thing gets nerfed or something, and everyone goes, everything else is bad. If you look a little bit at everything else, then you're prepared for when changes happen. And I think Slaves of Darkness, and hey, this, I haven't really spent too much focus into making the enemy bad movement. I've taken literally a Demon Prince that's very hard to kill, and then I've taken an endless spell. It's not like I put half the army into it. And then the other thing, like the Chaos Warhounds, for example, when you can make them, like, they normally move 12, right? That's great. Yeah, I think they were 12. They're 10 or 12. I think it was 10.
Okay, so like you can make them move at least 16, right? The enemy at this point, if I get all my nerfs off to their movement, they're not going to get any movement to that sort of range. Like
at minimum, you're claiming the objectives. If there's an objective on the center line, at minimum, you're going to claim that you're going to be within 6 of that. So that guaranteeing a first turn objective, that might even change the dynamics of opponent who likes to go second because they want to go for the double turn between turn 1, turn 2. They go, oh, I really need to get on the objective early. So they actually may give it away, take it instead of giving it away. So, and that was 80 points. 80 points just to manipulate a play style of your opponent, to screen.
So cheap. And I don't see many people allying any Beast of Chaos, maybe a Bray Shaman to do that, whatever that big bull spell is called, the Taurus or something. But I don't see them allying Chaos Hounds. And when I was saying to people, like, I brought some Chaos Hounds, like the response I get is like, oh, okay. And it's like, yeah, and you just deploy them, and then your enemy sees how big their bases are. Yeah. Oh, right, okay. That costs you 80 points. Yes.
Yeah, and I want to call out as we kind of move into our final thoughts, I want to call out something that Hobo from Zozo,
brilliant name.
Amazing name. Hobo from Zozo said, he said, what Mikey's just said about finding the good in something or the use in a subpar unit is a great perspective. And before I let you kind of retort to that, it's kind of why I don't talk a lot about what is good and what is rubbish, because in context of a list, something can be amazing. You take it out of its context, its situation, and put it somewhere else, and it performs differently. And I think that's where, the blessing of the internet, when I first started playing Warhammer Fantasy Battles, there was really no internet, or at least there was no internet community. So lists didn't get circulated very quickly. But as a new player, I might see Marauders being talked about, right? They're amazing Marauders. You've got to take Marauders. But if I don't understand why I'm taking it and the role that they're playing, I can get real tunnel vision picking a unit for the sake of picking it. And I overlook all this great stuff like the Chaos Spawn, like the Chosen, like the Lord on foot instead of Demonic Mount, or the Kakadrak, the Demon Prince. I haven't seen a lot of Demon Princes since the Nurgle nerf. I've seen a couple, but most people haven't gone down the Demon. And because we get tunnel vision, we don't look at all of the options available to us. And I think if nothing more, I think you've given us a good opportunity to review the book, look at the options, and think about, with the current meta, whether it's the domination of Seraphon and Zench, change host, the return of Daughters of Cain, or they never really left, but they're just getting popular again.
Yeah.
I can now look at my book and go, right, I have new challenges on the tabletop. What are my answers to the big blocks of Witch Elves? The turn one teleport of Change Host, and then dropping Flamers down. Well, cool. I can bring in those Untamed to move up and stop the Flamers from burninating my juicy stuff. And I think it's with that seeing go, oh, okay, cool. Well, what can solve my new problem?
Exactly. And I think you made some very good points there. And I just like just to say, like, on the Flamer part, I always review stuff and look at stuff as if let's say you're going to a tournament or an event where you don't know what armies you're fighting. But let's just say you happen to be fighting against the same dude at the same store who runs the same list every time, and you just want to beat it just for once. And let's say for some reason you've got the models, just take a block of 36 Untamed Beasts and just go, boom, cool, yeah, kill them. And then you do everything else. But how I always review stuff on my channel is, when I've done like these long in-depth review series, I've done for quite a few armies now. Currently, like I say, doing it for Slaves of Darkness. And I really like reviewing the units that no one else talks about because, like you say, tunnel vision. Purely because, firstly, some people may love those models and then they just don't get talked about on the internet, and it's a bit of a shame. But also, they can be useful. Like I've seen a lot of people say very bad stuff about Chosen, but I'm trying to find a way for them to work, and I think I might have managed to do it in the games I've tried of it. It's worked, so we'll take that to start with. But when I do all these long in-depth reviews, like I said, I was talking about the Warcry warbands, who most people don't take. I was talking about them for about an hour. So, and like when I did Beasts of Chaos, because we've mentioned the Chaos Warhounds. When I reviewed that series, it was the last one I did. And that was kind of still on the impression now that people were like, they're not the most competitive army. They really struggle. I think I still put about probably 10 hours, or at least 10 hours, into talking about how you can make them work. Every army you're fighting is not a change host. Every army you're fighting is not Gristlegore or Here Knights of Slanesh when they're really powerful, or Petra Elite when that's powerful. If every game you fight is at a tournament and you fight against these, and to be fair, if you've got Beast of Chaos and you're playing on these top tables and you're playing against those armies, fantastic. Don't get tunnel vision into thinking you're always going to have to play your army just to that level, because honestly, you're not. And most of us get into this hobby because we think models are awesome. Hey, like I said, Chaos Warriors and Chaos Knights are my favorite units really from Slaves of Darkness. Are they the best units in the whole book? No. But I'm going to try and make them work because I really like them. And I'm just happy to try and make models that everyone else likes work. Because if there's a will, there's a way. And quite often, like you said, it's all about context. And if you manage to create that context for that unit, you can make it work. So
I think the other call out I would make here before we start wrapping up is, when you follow a pattern, people will learn the pattern and know how to adapt to the pattern. So I played OBR, I think, since OBR released, and Petrifix Elite, very Mortec Guard heavy armies. I know the pattern now. I know what I need to do to handle Mortek Guard. I know that if there's a Gothazar Harvester on the table, I need to remove that. I know that, there's certain combinations, whether it is they're using catapults, whether they're using big blocks. I know how RDP works. I know the combinations and what people are going to do with their Bone Tithe Nexus. When you know the pattern, you can optimize your army or play around it. But when you play something that's unique, something special, something different, you ask different questions, and most people at the gaming table won't know how to respond. Yes. And I think the best way to win the game, obviously, 1 is movement. 2 is to ask a lot of questions. Ask challenging questions on the tabletop, not literally, ask your opponent what their underpants size is, or ask questions. You can, but you want to ask them questions on the table. The more questions you ask on the table, you'll make more mistakes. So by debuffing and go tunnel vision, like, right, I've got to go kill Be'lakor, I've got to kill the Demon Prince. Actually, you've now missed out on all the stuff that's making my army awesome, and you get to take advantage of that. And I really learned that lesson when I played Free People, which was before Cities of Sigmar, because no one was playing Free People. No one was playing the old Empire, and people just didn't know how to respond to the Great Company, to unpack the Great Company. So I think that there's a big lesson here that don't just focus on the models that are doing good. Look at your book and think about what works best for you.
I think that's a really good point. And I'd just like to say, like, for example, I always say, like, I've been playing Death since the start. It took them a while to get a battle tone, but I think because you have that idea, like you said, with the Free People, of playing something different, that mentality stays with you. Like, for example, I've been playing Fleshy Courts for ages, and then when their second battle tome came out, and everyone's like, oh, Gristle Gore, and some people like Blisterskin, I was like, cool, I'm going to go on Feast Day, which is not a Grand Court, but it's something different, and I think it's something that everyone overlooks. And Feast Day, for example, lets me do Feeding Frenzy each turn for free. Like, I can do once a turn. But people were just trying to, like, Terrorgeist, best unit in that army at the time, to do the damage, spam it. And it's just like, and also there's a joy in doing something different and then making it work. And that satisfaction for me, I think, is the best you can have on the tabletop.
So the last question I've got for you, we kind of bring this home, is, and this has been awesome. It's been really good to unpack. I think I was optimistic by saying that this video would go for 19 minutes.
Yeah, it's been a while, but no, I think there's been lots of good points made.
But I think because Slaves to Darkness, like Cities of Sigmar, has a lot of different varieties of builds, so much customization even at a mark level, I think it was great to really unpack that. And again, season for taste. If you like Nurgle and you want to build a Nurgle force, then think about what Mikey's talked about and think about, how do I bring those lessons into a Nurgle force, and what does a Nurgle force look like? Do I still need the resilience of like an Iron Golems if I've already got that with the Nurgle markings in my Chaos Knights and Shrine? Think about, well, if I want a bit more reliability on Be'lakor sorcery, is there Zench things that can actually boost that? And I think it's just asking those different questions will get you to the most optimal list that you want to run. So take these lessons with a grain of salt, just like we always do. This is not the silver bullet list.
This is an army that you can, I believe for myself anyway, I could play for years and run it differently every time. Like, you could have two Safe Darkness players been playing it differently for a year, and they could chat to each other for hours about different things. It's and like I say, as soon as you like break out of the idea of my guys are painted one way, I want to just play them as that one way, because you're really just giving yourself so many different play styles. And like you said, for example, if you go Nurgle, a War Shrine now may be an auto-include, whereas if you were going, let's say, Slaanesh, it may have not been. So it then opens up different categories of different units you want to take, which is cool.
Yeah, it's very, very cool, very, very exciting. It's probably why I love Cities so much. It's why I love Git so much, because you can sit in this army for years and rotate your models. Just there's so much versatility compared to other armies that have just got like 10 War Scrolls. I mean, Gargans, my Gargan army has literally 5 War Scrolls to play with. There's only so much we can do. But Mikey, last question before we kind of bring this home. And by the way, really enjoyed this channel. I just want to highlight that Mikey does have a YouTube channel. I do have the link down below as well. Go check out Age of Nagash if you haven't already subbed. If you need additional incentives, I've got 3 videos on Mikey's channel now, so you can go watch me talk about Sons of Behemat, Gloomspike, Cities of Sigmar. So if you need more incentive, go watch my shows at minimum. But Mikey has got some really great content on there, so do go give him a sub. Go check this out. But the last question I've got is there anything else that you've learnt, or anything that might not be as obvious to your opponents that when you pick up Slaves to Darkness, and more importantly, the Idolator list, and if this it's within Broken Realms, so if you guys haven't got this is where you find the additional rules. Any final closing comments, any things that you want to share that you haven't already shared in 2.5 hours of 24 karat gold?
I was going to say, there's some things I was saving towards the end, but I think we've talked quite a lot about most things. I think some of it's a little bit, sorry about that, it's just a quick alarm. I think, so obviously marks are huge. You've got to get very good at your measuring game. Don't look at war scrolls and think that's it. Most war scrolls in that army can be altered into different ways. Like, for example, the Chosen, which were freeze and freeze -1, 1 damage. I've easily made reroll on the ones that hit, reduce the wind without putting really any effort in. In this list, there's just a chariot nearby. That's literally it. So there is that. You may look at the spell laws and think they're very good. There's not really many ways to get inherent pluses to your casting unless you go different sub-allegiances, Cabalists, but it's still not a great way because you have to make sacrifices to do it. And I think one of the big things I want to say as well is don't get tunnel visions, like we mentioned, into this army. It's a good investment. Honestly, this army is the best value army, I believe, out there because of how many ways you can play it. And it's an army that is... I think it's quite easy to learn, but it's quite hard to master. Like we said, like you can mark everything just one mark, like I've done. Then like basically most things are reroll once they hit and then maybe +1 to wound. But if you want to, like Doug mentioned earlier, if you want to try and split things up, then that's when the mastering starts coming. And it's an army that can survive the meta very well. You can probably pick it up for quite cheap as well, this army, not going to lie to you, because some of the models have been around for a while. I'm trying to. There were things I want to mention, but we've mentioned quite a bit. I will say, because this army has so many allies available, if you look at Bloodbound, typically now they may get a new book and things may change, but a lot of their mortal Bloodbound heroes benefit Khorne mortal units. So I could teleport the Chosen 9 inches away from the enemy. Turn 1, I could run up the Bloodstoker. Make the Bloodstoker, give them +3 to charge, and then give them the reroll charge if needed. So, like, that's just a little thing. I looked at putting in a Bloodsecrator instead of a Chaos Lord in this to give everything wholly within 16 inches, +1 attack. So now the Chosen are making 4 attacks each. So there's these little things. I know there's I think there's like a Nurgle character that helps as well. Maybe, who knows, Hedonic Sinesh may have some brand new things to put into this army. So have a look at those war scrolls as well when they come out. There's loads to this army. I feel like there's an injustice. There's probably something I'm missing out, but there's loads to it. Yeah, I think, honestly, I know it sounds like a little thing. Make sure when you look at the war scrolls, that's not all you're going to get. It's going to get better. And make sure you're good at measuring. And just one good thing I want to say, because it's not always common. Your big, scary Grand Marshal of the Apocalypse named character is pretty damn good. Yeah. You can use your big, shiny model. He's not just staying in a cabinet.
Yeah, no, Archeon is definitely, again, no stranger to the tabletop, and it's awesome to see him back on the table. So, Mikey, we've given you a plug. People know where to go. Go check out Age of Nagash. This has been an awesome video. I had a laugh with Chuck Moore. I'm doing a video tomorrow on the Daughters of Cain equivalent. And I'm like, man, I've got a hard finish in 90 minutes. I've got a work meeting. He's like, yeah, I've got to go to bed. It's American time. So I'm like, cool, man, these videos won't go longer than 90 minutes unless you're Haywo Twitch, where we went 3 hours with Beast Claw Raiders. You are on the Haywo Twitch side. So we have almost gone through. This is a feature film, guys, that you guys have gotten for free. So thank you very much for your time. I hope you've enjoyed Slaves to Darkness. So you're going to say something finally?
I was just going to say, as the first time being on someone else's channel, absolute pleasure. I think what a great way to start off my first experience of doing it. It's been nice to be interviewed and not the host for once. It was quite interesting. And I've really enjoyed it. And I think hopefully, more than anything else, we've helped some people out there trying to design stuff. Like I say, I'm on the works of a massive Slaves to Darkness series. So if you want to go any more in depth, check that out. That's what I'd say. But thank you very much for having me, mate. It's been a pleasure.
I'll let you sign off and then I'll sign off and we'll go from there. So, Mikey, take us home.
Right, guys. So I want to say thank you very much for watching this video. If you haven't subscribed to the AOS Coach, I don't know why.
No, you sign off. You sign off.
All right, guys. Well, thank you very much for watching this video. Remember, if you want more tips and tricks for Slaves of Darkness and other armies, come check out my channel. It's been an extra pleasure being on this video. And until next time I do a video, thank you very much for having me on here, Anthony. And thank you for everyone in the chat joining.
That's not what I wanted. Just your Nagash sign off.
Oh, right. I thought you wanted me to do a long splurge. Right. Okay. Everyone remember, until this global pandemic is done, wash your hands, wear a mask, all that jazz. Everyone also remember that until next time, Nagash is all and all is one in Nagash.
We got there. Third time lucky, guys. Thank you very much.
The theme with our videos is fine.
We got there in the end. All right. Don't forget to name your characters. Don't forget your triumph. And most importantly, shoot the heroes. Mate, how good was that video? Surely it's going to go straight to the pool room. If you enjoyed that video, I would appreciate it if you crush that like button. And if you have an opinion, leave it in the comments section. That lets YouTube know it's a great video and it should share it with other Age of Sigmar players. Cheers to all the bloody legends here on the screen who have financially supported AOS Coach on Patreon on YouTube members. Their contributions have helped me improve the quality, frequency, and the variety of content on this channel. So cheers, guys, you are bloody legends. Until the next video, don't forget to shoot the heroes and have a good one.